Hello, and welcome to the most censored man on the planet. Even YouTube's playing silly buggers. So, just started this live. See if anyone joins. See if anyone even gets notified by TikTok that I'm doing a live. So we're just waiting for people to join. Literally just started. I'll be interested to see if they actually notify people, which they don't normally do, but as some people join in, hi everyone, literally just started this live, hope you're well, hope you're having a nice weekend. So thank you for just joining, just literally just started this live, so just waiting for people to come in. Jensen's wrote, oh, scrolled up a bit too quick, wasn't notified, just scrolling, yeah, thank you, yeah. You know, don't you? You know that I'm limited. I think YouTube's also causing me problems with the new movie that I've made, but we'll see what happens and see whether or not people. I've actually paid for an advert to go out on YouTube. Last time I did that was for one of my books. You know what, the YouTube where you get adverts come up before the video that you actually want to watch. I pay for the premium, so I don't get that. But at work, I still see the bloody adverts. But I paid for an advert that I made for my book, and it was doing quite well actually. The advert, people were clicking through, and then one day I got a message from YouTube saying it's religious. It was about the Anunnaki. There's not one religious bit in there. Nothing to do with Christians, nothing to do with Islam, nothing to do with a religion. He's talking about characters, which obviously we know the Anunnaki were real, we know that. You don't have millions of things to do with them. This is the funny thing is with mainstream, they call them myth. They call the Anunnaki myth. And they call Genghis Khan real. There's about 4 or 5 bits of evidence, contemporary evidence, in other words, people writing about Genghis Khan at the time. That's it. And they call him real, but the millions of tablets, carvings, buildings, you name it, cylinder seals, etc., millions. It's a myth. So you know that they lie. Anyway, so yes, my advert for my book got pulled off because it was religious, even though it was nothing whatsoever. I avoid religion because it's all wrong, but so yeah, that was YouTube pulling it off. Sad, isn't it? That they have to have their own way. Very sad. Jensen's wrote, tried to link to new movie, but had to join YouTube to watch. Yeah, it comes out Saturday. Thank you for doing that. It comes out Saturday, drops, so it's a premiere. So on my website, it sort of takes you to the YouTube site. On Saturday, there'll be a BitTorrent link on my website and stuff, but obviously it's not out yet, so I couldn't put the BitTorrent link there. And the new movie that comes out, there's a little bit at the beginning where I do some talking, and then there's a bit at the end where I talk about the other 7 movies. So what I'm hoping, so far, touch wood, everyone's loved it. What I'm hoping is that once you guys watch the movie, you'll stay and watch the end where I talk about the other 7 movies. In fact, yeah, I won't spoil it, but there's just keep watching all the way through to the end. Yeah, I don't want to spoil. There's a little thing in there as well. But yes, it's all good stuff. Avatar has joined. Wrote, hello, God, sir. Hi, Avatar, and that's you to join. I'm not a god. I'm just drawn that way. Name the film. Who remembers the film? I'm not going to give any more clues. I'm just drawn that way. Jay has wrote, why all the empty slots? So the empty slots are the allowing people up to chat. So what it was is I used to do the live chat where I had a background but never showed my face because, I've got a face for radio and I don't want all the women getting excited or running away. Take your pick. But I don't show my face because obviously I do stuff that people don't like. There's a lot of people out there that don't like the idea that I debunk them, don't like the idea that I, point out the gods were Anunnaki. So I don't show my face. It was a conscious decision years and years ago to avoid being on the internet. and it served me well so far. There's no reason for people to see me, especially when I'm doing evidence-based stuff. But so anyway, I did these live chats where I had descriptions in the background. Thank you, Snuggles. Where I had descriptions in the background of what was going on, but TikTok then changed the way that they did it. Thank you, Avatara. They changed the way that they did it so that people that wasn't showing their face, such as myself, they changed it to allow audio only, which is what we're on now. So when I try and still go back on the old one, I get a notification from TikTok saying, you're not moving, you're not real, you're not alive. They think it might be pre-recorded or something. So therefore they're limiting me. And the reason why I went back on those recently is because they limit me here anyway. We're going to be limited to about 15 people for the next 25 minutes. And then if we're lucky, we get up to about 30, no more than 40. Thank you, Snuggles. So I'm limited either way, whatever way I do it. But the gaps there are other people when they let them up. So if I let people up to chat, each one of those plus signs will have someone's icon in there. When I have let people up before, it's a bit hit and miss. It's probably 70% crap and like 10% good, and the other 20% is just, weird. So so I do try and limit the amount of times I let people up, because we've had some where we've let people up and they just, first, without sounding rude to them, they're so slow and they talk like this, which is not me. You know me, I'm a quick fire, get on with it, don't bore people. And so, unfortunately, because I'm polite, I don't tell them to go, to hurry up or anything. And so we end up with like a half hour of hello. So, yeah, it's sad. But yeah, that's what the empty slots are for. Avatars wrote, is there anything in the tablets about this Earth key being an experiment, Anunnaki being judged? Well, okay, so sort of slightly different. Yes. Right, so Earth being an experiment. No, there's nothing I've ever read that suggests Earth was an experiment. It seems to be, using modern science as well. It was what modern science. Type in snowball Earth, and you'll see. Excuse me. And you'll see a lot of scientists agree that when Earth was first here, it was a snowball Earth. In other words, ice covered. Which is interesting because Tiamat was called the Frost Giant from the Norse stories, which means it was an ice planet. And of course, we've got ice on Ceres, which is one of the rocks in the asteroid belt, and there's water vapor all around the asteroid belt. So, all in all, it does appear that Tiamat got broke up. And in fact, about 6 months ago, I think it was, Mainstream said that they found rocks older than the age of Earth. Which is, thank you, Nicole. Hi, Nicole. Hope you're well. So, how can you have rocks on Earth that's older than Earth? Built-in rocks, not asteroids. And the reason for that is because those rocks were part of Tiamat. Obviously, other rocks form. Rocks don't just suddenly appear from nowhere; they form. So, the older rocks that they found was rocks that had already formed on Tiamat, and newer rocks after Tiamat being smashed up and moved to this position, and then obviously volcanoes and Christ knows what else happened over the years. So it does make sense to me that it was a planet that got nudged here and because it broke up from Tiamat. So I wouldn't say it was an experiment. Anunnaki being judged, they have 7 judges, which would preside over something. So if there was a dispute, they would have the 7 judges. And so when Alula had his misfortune of biting off King Anu's private part, he was judged by 7 other Anunnaki. Now, I believe these to be elders. So it seems that they don't say it, but when you put everything together about the Bible, where Ezekiel goes up and sees elders. Now, obviously, God would be the oldest, you'd think, wouldn't you? But no, there was elders there. um, so yeah, so I think that these are elders, and when you look at other cultures where they have the elders as the wiser people, and they're the ones that people go to. Let's go to see the elders. I wouldn't say. Well, I would say that they used the judges as elders. So yes, even the Anunnaki had their own judgments against them. In fact, there's a tablet called Enlil and Sud, which I'll be doing a reading of and putting on my site, where Sud being the young, and if I'm going to have to use the word carefully, but young, too young, female Anunnaki that Enki had his wicked way with, same as Zeus. Zeus did exactly the same thing because Zeus is Enki. And he was judged and sent away. Enlil was actually sent away, banished for doing what he done, getting this young lady pregnant. And that was a no-no, which is great to see that. I mean, it's not great to see that he did it, but it's great to see that they understood that that was wrong. That was wrong. They obviously had an age limit. I don't know what age she was, but they have an age limit, which is great because when you come to knowing that all the religions are based off, not some a bit dodgy, but they're all based off of the Anunnaki, because there's no way that hundreds of different gods from around different cultures all suddenly appeared around the same sort of time and around the same sort of area. It doesn't work like that. So they were the same gods. And it's good because there are some religions, one in particular, where they seem to think that it's not a problem for that. So it's good to know that the Anunnaki had standards, and sad to know that some people on this planet don't have standards. I mean, to be honest, I don't think my brain really kicked into gear until I was probably 15, 16, to understand stuff. And even then, there's obviously, you gain the experience, you gain the wisdom and the knowledge of what's going on in life. Thank you, whoever's doing the hearts. We are limited to 15 people for the next about 20 minutes. That's because I tell the truth and TikTok limits me, and they say they don't, but they do, clearly. I mean, you don't stay dead on 15 and Anyway, so yes, thank you for your question, Avatar. Good question. Got number 3 in the class for that. I was going to say number 15 in the class, but number 3 in the class. Avatar's right. Remember the old God, you devil, George Burns movies? Yes. God, yeah. I haven't heard of that for a long time. George Burns was an American actor. Didn't he always used to smoke a cigar or something? Yes. Haven't seen one of his films since I was a previous life, a long time ago. The hearts won't do anything. We're going to be limited to 15 people, but I really appreciate that you're thinking of me, but there's no point. It will drop back down. It's 17, but it will drop back down to 15, so there really is no point in the hearts. But bless you, whoever's doing that. Snuggles has put laughing faces. I'm not sure. Hopefully that was something funny I'd said. Jay has wrote, yes, but you don't usually chat. That was probably to do with the letting the people up. I'm not sure what you mean by that. As far as I'm aware, the boxes were for people to come up and chat, but I'm not an expert on TikTok, strangely, even though I use TikTok, and I hate TikTok now, but so forgive me if I don't understand what that meant. Avatars wrote, our true history loves the mystery. I do. I love trying to solve something, even if it's something I'll never solve, even if I come up with the wrong answer. I like to solve something. So, speaking of solved, succubus and incubus. Told you we'd be limited to 15 people. So it will always go down. Even if people come in, it will go back down to 15 for the next 20 odd minutes. Succubus and incubus. Someone asked me the other day and reminded me to look into it. So obviously there's no images or videos that I can, there's no point in making a documentary on it because there's nothing to show. It would be possibly the first few words, where you can go back to the oldest mention of it. And so the video will be not a great video. So I did a live chat with Julie, an AI, as I do. Trust me, I don't believe AI. You know, I don't. So it's not like, oh, he's using AI to get his research. It's far from it. AI uses me for the research. But anyway, succubus and incubus. Who wants to know what it is before the video drops? It's not what you think. So what you have to do, the way I research is, what you have to do is you have to work out. So I don't know if you guys know what succubus and incubus is. Basically, incubus is a female that appears in dreams and has. I'm being very brief here, and has sexual relations with someone in their sort of dream. A succubus is the other way around. A male will end up doing something to a female. Now, the key of research is, when were they first mentioned? And the reason why that's important is because when you realise that the first mentions of a succubus was back in, wait for it, sorry, my phone's saying it's overheating. Yes, because of my amazing research. Thank you, phone. Let me take it out of its case. Sorry, I've got a case on it. It's overheats. Yeah, so succubus, the first mention of it was in Mesopotamia. So now you guys can work this out now. So when you've got something in Mesopotamia, which we know is way back, I mean, we're talking Sumerian time, not even, not after that. That's Mesopotamia broke up and became different parts. So we know it's old, one of the oldest. When you have that, Mesopotamia, then you look at the descriptions. You guys are catching on now. When you look at the descriptions of this Mao that would come and take a woman, guess what the description is? Large in stature, huge. And you're now thinking, oh my God, why didn't anyone else work that one out? So that's that. You figured it out. And that's exactly what they did as well. So we know that. Enki tells us that he even did it loads of times. So we know who they are. They probably, sadly, the descriptions, and this is what's sad about it. Sadly, it seems like they may have used a chemical. I have to be careful what I say. Used a chemical on the females to make them disorientated or unconscious or whatever, which is very, very sad. And then you move on to the incubus, and that's a different time frame, so it's not who you think they are. I'm not going to tell you because I've done a whole video on it, and I want people to go and watch the videos that I do. Otherwise, there's no point in me doing the videos if I just give everything away. But you've heard that first here, so you can work out the rest of that one. Scrolling down, Snuggles wrote, I've joined your fan club for 1 month. That's not what you wrote. That seems to be TikTok that's done that. Thank you, Snuggles, for being a fan for a month. I know you've been a fan. I hate saying that I have fans because it makes me sound so pretentious. I've got fans. No, you're friends and family. That's why I see it, not a fan. Avatar's wrote, sir, have you ever tried having your screen as a background and then battling with someone, a mod who is live on screen? I'm guessing it's those battle game things that people do. I have no idea what they are about, to be honest. So if you could tell me in the background and give me just a hint, on a DM or something, and because it sounds like a clever idea. By playing a game, but you're actually just not really playing the game, I'm guessing, and you're talking, and therefore we might get more than the 15 viewers that we keep getting limited to. So thank you, Avatar. It's a great idea. I just don't know enough about it to. So if you can give me a hint as a DM, that would be great. Jay's wrote, that is such bollocks. Excuse my language. That's Jay's. I'm guessing it's the limiting where I was talking about being limited on YouTube, Instagram. Facebook has done me as well, by the way. Facebook has done me. So go back 3-4 months ago. My videos, I was getting loads of comments and everything, loads of likes. So I was putting it on Instagram and it gets automatically shared on Facebook. Now, none. One view if I'm lucky. Something happened. I had thousands. I had like 10,000 on one video, more than TikTok, more than 3 months ago, and now none. Literally none. I scrolled back and back and back, and there's like one like, and that was probably me that liked it, um, from work or something. So yeah, I'm so getting screwed over. And you watch those other people. There's a video on YouTube called Anunnaki Movie or some crap, and it's done by Anunnaki Origins, the ones that nicked my actual um, description of the Anunnaki and used my wording, because it even come up with visit our true history. Um, so that sod has got like over 1 million views on that video in a month, which is obviously all wrong because they don't actually research, and yet mine is totally suppressed. So you can kind of figure out why we've only got 15 people here, because I tell the truth. Avatars wrote, plus you make money battling. I wouldn't want to take any money off of anyone else. If TikTok pays, fine, but I don't do this for money, believe it or not. I'm a billionaire. Well, I'll rephrase that. I'm a billion short of being a billionaire. So I'm fine. Avatars wrote, there used to be 300 people in these chats. Yeah, there wasn't there? Those were good times. Where I'd stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning on a live chat just to answer every single question. James wrote, you could let me up. Let me get to the bottom of the questions first, then, if you don't mind. And then if you're still here, I don't know how to let you up on this. You'll have to ask again, and I'll try and figure it out. Thank you, Jay. Tuckers wrote, what was Göbekli Tepe built for by the Anunnaki? They were silos. They were places where they put grain, food, animals, etc. You could only get in from the top. They'd have to they lifted the lids off. There's no entrance otherwise. And we know that they could use levitation. Otherwise, we wouldn't have some of the buildings. And even Namnadal, the local people used to say that the things were, the blocks were levitated. So that's what they were. I'm the one that worked that out. Yay me. That's why I'm limited. But yeah, they were silos. That's where they needed to put the food and livestock and grain and stuff somewhere. And in fact, if you watch one of my videos or go to Oxford University's website where they do the translations of Sumerian, type in the word silo, and you'll see they had silos. And I didn't know that, so I worked out that they were silos myself. And what the carvings are the things that's inside. So they knew what was inside each one. There's loads. There's about 100 of these buildings, but they're all covered over, and they were covered over by the Great Flood, which means they would have been older than 10, 12,000 years old, which is what mainstreams say. But the mainstreams have dated it with the date of the dirt that's inside, which would have been when the Great Flood happened, which was a tsunami, which is why they got covered over in the first place. No one sat there and covered them over. This is what's stupid about mainstream. Sitting there going, oh, they're all covered over deliberately. Yeah. Really? Who would in their right mind 12,000 years ago go, right, finish with these now, let's come on guys, let's all dig some mud up and sand and sediment from the ocean and stick it in the holes and break the lids and everything? No, of course not. Stupid mainstream. So yes, that's what Göbekli Tepe were. There was just a place where the Anunnaki could, and the only people that could lift the lids were the Anunnaki, so it stopped us humans from pilfering, which was a genius idea. Thank you, Jay. Alara's wrote, hi, mate, from Roswell, New Mexico, USA. Hi, Elara. I hope I've pronounced that right. Hi. I have a special place in my heart for Roswell because it was, obviously it was 1947. And as I started learning stuff as a kid, 6 years old, one of the things that cropped up over time and time again was Roswell. And so that, a little special place for Roswell. So put the kettle on, I'll be over in an hour. But no, it is, that and I remember watching the film with, I can't remember the guy's name now. He was in Flintstones, can't remember his name. He was in it, Carl McLaughlin or something like that, years and years and years ago when it first came out. I'm surprised they even allowed that movie to be made, actually, when you realise what it's about. Avatar wrote, do you believe Anunnaki sacrifice self to step down, become human by birth in human through DNA mingle? Funny you should say that. So the script for the second movie is actually covering that. So once you've watched the first movie, you'll hopefully say, "Oh, I can't wait to see the second movie." And so the beginning of the second movie covers that point, and it's from what I've learned, it's to do with the spirit. It has to be. I mean, even the Art Trahasis talks about it. As someone reminded me that it talks about the ghost or the spirit of the deceased Anunnaki, and they took his head off. So there's no other reason why an Anunnaki would have been slain in order to use something from him to create the first Homo sapien. You can get bone marrow, you can do pretty much everything. The only thing that seems to be a one-off is the orb that's connected with the pineal gland. That seems to be the only thing that's different. Of course, when you add the fact that the Art Trahasis tells us that it was to do with the ghost or the spirit, I can't remember that word, I think it might have been spirit, then it has to be slain for that reason. Now, if you take the version that Sitchin and I think, to be honest, I don't think the Moorhens is the same as Sitchin's, but Sitchin says that. Sorry, give me a second. I'm just trying to get it right. So Sitchin said that they tried 6 times or something, 7 times, which we've got the tablet for that, so we know they definitely tried it. But he said that they was trying it with the Neanderthal, or the hominid, which would have been the Neanderthal, and that fouled. And then Nimna, who was one of the Anunnakis, said, "I'll birth the child." And so that's when the slain part possibly came into it, where now that the baby is going to be born through an Anunnaki instead of a hominid, that seems to be the point where the slain part comes into it. So it's something. Now, if you take that as and hold that thought, from my research, I believe the Anunnaki had copper blood and they had blue blood. So everything seems to match, because if you have copper blood and you breed with someone with normal blood, red blood, you can end up with Rh negative. So that makes perfect sense to me. So if they was trying to breed someone, thank you, Nicole. If they was trying to breed a human inside an Anunnaki, would the first Adamu have come out with blue blood, or would it have come out with red blood? In which case, was the other Anunnaki that was slain something to do with, not necessarily the spirit, but I do think that was the case. But I'm just being devil's advocate, arguing myself. Could it have been something to do with the fact that, like we now have to have drugs, or the females have to have drugs if they're Rh negative and the other parent was a certain blood type, to stop the baby from dying. So was that something that they had to do? But I still can't see why they would have slain someone just to. You probably pretty much get everything other than the orb without having to kill someone. So I still think it's to do with that. But yes, they did sacrifice. Only the one that they've mentioned. They give his name. Don't ask me how to pronounce it. I could never pronounce it. But yeah, thank you for your question. Go number 2 in the class. Good question. Advertiser wrote, when a female births a child, that child's DNA permanently changes to female and dwells within them. Okay, that's a good point. So where I was just being devil's advocate with myself, but I still can't see what, I even asked AI and everything, what we couldn't get from someone living. But yeah, no, you make a good point. Very good point. So get gold star for that. Thank you, Gary. Hi, Gary. Hope you're well. Jay has wrote, ouch, I wouldn't want to have that bitten off. He swallowed it as well, obviously to stop it being sewn on, because obviously if they're medical equipment, they can create us. They could probably have sewn his manhood back on. So by swallowing it, obviously, once it goes into the acid in the stomach, you got less chance of sewing it back up. Yeah, I wouldn't want it bit off either. JT Mello has wrote, can they regrow body parts? That's an interesting question. Now, apparently, we can. In fact, we can regrow teeth. Apparently, fairly recently, they've worked out that we should have the ability to keep growing teeth when our ones fall out. Apparently, whether or not you believe that, but that's what I've seen doctors now saying that that's the case. They was using the shark as an example because the shark's teeth just continuously grow if they lose one. Now, could the Anunnaki? Well, they brought back someone, for example, from death. Now, I don't know whether it was deaf or mostly deaf, dead. Inanna from the underworld, which was South Africa, place where Erishkigal and Nurgle were. So they've got the ability. They gave Inanna the food of life and the water of life. Now, what that is, for all we know, it could have been an intravenous drip. For all we know, I don't like to think, oh, right, they've got water and food that they can just give someone and bang, they come back to life. It doesn't seem to work like that, the way that the Anunnaki word things. So it's totally possible that it could have been, she could have been starved to death, or dying because of not being fed. And so, if you're dying in a desert and you see an oasis, that's the water of life to you. That's that. So is it? There could be a lot to do with that. So it's hard to say that. Now, could they regrow a body part? Well, they certainly had the technology to, like CRISPR, like we have now, to determine a. What's interesting? Do you know what's very, very interesting? Is the tablet Enki and Nimna, where they're trying to create the first Homo sapien from a Neanderthal. I would have thought they would have genetically chose a boy each time as the first one to come out. I would have thought that, but they didn't. There was a eunuch in there by mistake, and there was a female. So I would have thought they had the technology, and I would have just thought that they would have chose a male first and then worried about the female after, but it didn't seem to be the case. But they had the ability to I don't know about regrow. I've never read anything where someone was that badly hurt. There was a snake bite with Horan, you know him as Horus, the Egyptian. He had a snake bite, and his mum called up to. Long story, but yeah, they healed him. So they have the ability to, medical technology is far more advanced than ours to be able to do the stuff they've done. But regrow, I've never read anything. But that's not to say they couldn't. I would imagine they could. That my gut feeling is if they could do that, they would have probably done that on Nibiru with the better technology and everything else that they would have had. Because you've got to remember they had to keep shipping stuff here. It's not like we've got infrastructures here, which we have now. They back then it was like us going to a desert island. We'd have nothing, and that's pretty much the same as them. They had to keep bringing bits here, but I would imagine they would be able to at the very least, synthetically, dare I say it, create like we've done with an ear many years ago. I don't know if you guys know, but we managed to create an ear from stem cells on a mouse. So the mouse actually had a human ear on its back. If we can do that, then we're at least 300 years behind the Anunnaki. Then I would imagine they would have some degree of creating an arm, for example, not necessarily regrowing the arm there and then on the person, but growing the arm and then stitching it somehow back together. That's what I would imagine they would have done. Thank you for your question. Good question. Good, number 2 in the class for that. Avatar's wrote, how could that work in reverse with an Anunnaki female?
WhatsApp. Someone has sent you a WhatsApp.
Sorry, someone sent a message. How would that work? So, just so the way, believe it or not, the bigger you are doesn't necessarily equate to the larger manhood that you have, if that's what you're referring to. And if you look at the carvings of the gods in Rome and Egypt where they're naked.
WhatsApp. Someone has sent you a WhatsApp.
Sorry, where they're naked, the manhood, then they're not sort of they're not doing a favour to us men. Basically, it looks like that it was a cold day when they had that done. So it's totally possible that, although possibly bigger, not humongously bigger. So it does seem to be the case, because obviously, so for the male side, but then for the females, thank you, Avatar. For the female side, when they slept with human men, what would it have been like? Again, don't know the size of a woman's, you know what, but somehow you could put. Obviously, Gilgamesh was a, from an Anunnaki mum, so somehow it worked. Don't ask me how. And Inanna was the one that set up brothels, and she would sleep with human men, and she was an Anunnaki. So they obviously got something out of it. I mean, my mind's going off now, thinking what else could you put up there? So I'm not going to go there. So I'm going to stop now. But you guys can have a think on what else that a female might. But obviously they did end up. Thank you, Avatar. They did end up with children. So there you go. And I mean, if you look at my documentary on who Lucifer was, you'll find that it would have been Inanna's child. So yes, Jay has wrote not even a bit of it. Swallow, you're biting the thing off. Yeah, I'm guessing that's what it was referring to. Nameless has wrote, sorry, tapping in place, my bad. No worries at all. So we've gone past the 15, like I said would happen, and we're going to be limited to 30 people now. 15 to 30, that's what always happens. So we're not going to get any more than 30 people. We'll get up to 40 sometimes if we're lucky, and then it'll go back down to 30. It'll stay at 30. Nicole's wrote, could the height of the Anunnaki be due to the terrain, climate, or nutrition in Nibiru? Now, it's a good question. The reason why I struggle with that question is because we're comparing it to us. We're saying, they're massive to us. To an ant, we're massive. So while we think that they're huge, which they are, and if you look at the Greys and the Nordics and the Palladians and the Tall Whites and the Dracos, Anunnaki tower above them all. So technically, yes, they are large if we compare them with other species, but obviously a giraffe is taller than me. And that's why when you look at the carvings, the Ica stones and the Acambra figurines, which are ancient carvings of dinosaurs and some characters, I say characters because when you realise that they're riding a dinosaur or they're standing there slicing its throat, and they're the same height as a T-Rex or a dinosaur that looks similar to a T-Rex, then you realise who would have been 20 odd foot tall? Anunnaki. So to a dinosaur, they would have been about the same size. Obviously not a sauropod, but one of the bipedal ones. But so the question you've asked though is why would they be larger in the first place? Well, their planet is bigger than ours, at least 4 to 10 times the size. That's based off of descriptions, as well as, and when I say descriptions, from the Hopis and the Native American stories, and also from the gravitational shifts. Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you very much for that. The gravitational shifts that have been spotted on celestial objects, where they say there's another object out there 4 to 10 times. They say the density of Earth, but we don't know what their material is made of. But if we go with everything, then it seems to be 4 to 10 times the size of Earth. And the fact that the description of Nibiru, when it comes in from the Moorhen translations, it comes in big and cocky into our solar system, passes Pluto, suggests that it is a large planet. Obviously not as large as Jupiter, but a large planet. And it smashed into Tiamat, or the moon smashed first, and then, well, I say moons, they called them winds, so it may have been just picked up debris, rocks on its way in, and slingshotted and hit Nibiru. Either way. So going back to your question, so that the size of the planet could be a factor. The density of the planet could be another factor. And again, it seems like the larger predators that we used to have got wiped out because of technically us. I mean, if you look at the carvings, as I say, of the dinosaurs, the last few that survived after the meteorite back 66 million years ago, they got wiped out by us. We've got carvings of a Stegosaurus on a Mayan wall. We've got India's got loads of carvings of different dinosaurs, which they shouldn't have at all. So they were around up until about 1,000+ years ago, dinosaurs, but they were getting killed by us. So the Anunnaki, would they have been that high tall? Because the other creatures on there were even bigger. So, like we have bigger creatures now, elephants and bears and things like that, were the Anunnaki just the normal height? Or did they genetically make themselves bigger? I don't know. My guess is it's to do with the planet itself and the gravity. That's just my guess, but I might be wrong. But thank you for your question. You're number 2 in the class for that. Jay's wrote, of course they had standards. That was going back to when Enlil did a naughty thing with someone young. Yes. Obviously, he didn't have standards. That's why when people say to me, what were the Anunnaki like? And I say, no different from us. Sadly, just from that alone, we can see that there's sick Anunnaki as well as good Anunnaki. And unfortunately, we've got the same here. Ella has wrote, trying to tap. Doesn't. Yeah, we're back down to the 15 now. So that's our lot for life, I'm afraid. Bang goes the good times of 300 people. Alora's wrote, think God. So I'm just going to have a quick drink. I'm guessing that was to do with the Robert Burns, was it? George Burns. Jay's wrote, who played God? Alora's wrote, are you taking guests? Technically I wasn't, but let me just get to the end of the questions, because what happens is where there's now questions, if it was me and I wrote a question waiting for someone to answer it, and then suddenly they let up people, I'd be like, oh, for God's sake, now how long am I going to wait for my question to be answered? So I like to get to the end, and then I can say, oh, right, okay, I've got time, someone come up. Yeah, so hopefully that makes sense. Avatar's wrote, George Burns played God before Morgan Freeman took over that job. I'm guessing you're referring to the movie with... oh, bloody hell, my brain just went to Jim Carrey. I'm trying to remember the name of the film now. It's on the tip of my tongue. What's the film? Bruce Almighty. What was it? Got there in the end. Jezra, I'm laying in the likes anyway. Oh, thank you. You don't have. You can see it. It's not going to change it. And TikTok's made their mind up and set me a limit, and that's why I'm praying you guys. If you watch the movie and you kind of enjoy it when it's out Saturday, it's an 2-hour movie, so do set aside time for it. Don't sort of go, oh, I'm skipping through it because I'm now rushing. Sit down and watch it like you would any movie, please. But once you've watched it, I do hope you just sort of say, my God, that was a great movie. Clearly the guy can direct. Clearly the guy can write scripts, which I do. And I want to show my friends it. So forget the fact that it's Anunnaki, because I know people on here right now, speaking of Darwin, hi Darwin, who's got family members that will not, Nicole's another one, family members that won't look at it and go, oh, religious, or it's crap, or without even seeing the film. So look at it. Hopefully you watch it, you enjoy it, and then you can say, look, watch this science fiction film and share it, because as you can see, I am limited to 15 people, big time. And I've got nearly 300,000 followers, so to have just 15 people on the dot is ridiculous. Thank you, Kerry. So hopefully you guys share the link for the Anunnaki movie, and just finally get the correct information out there as well, because the film is based off of my research, and as you know, I put the effort in for the research. Anyways, History and Coins wrote, "Sorry, just woke up. Please don't be sorry. You arrived exactly when you needed to arrive." Thank you, History and Coins. Scrolling down. Avatars wrote, "She steals your orgasmic energy." That was probably when I was talking about succubus and incubus, or hopefully that's what it was talking about. I'm starting to worry now. People chatting to each other. Jazz wrote, "Yes, I'm one of those 6'4". Wow. Okay. Yeah, a little bit taller than me. My daughter's husband now, is 6'4". I hate standing next to him. I like being the taller. I am 6'3". I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to add an extra inch for the sake of it. I'm just not that type of guy to lie. So yes, you are taller than me, Jay. So go away. I don't like you now. I'm joking. Avatars wrote, "TikTok calls the top gifter a guardian." Ah, right. Okay. I really should learn, but there's no point in learning now because they limit me to 15 people. So they've made their mind up on me for whatever reason. We know what the reason is. Jazz wrote, "I'm your biggest fan." Oh, thank you, Jay. You should tell that to Riz the Biz, who always writes, I'm his biggest fan. But I don't have fans. You're just a family member, Jay, that's interested in the same things as me. I don't like having a fan. That's like, I don't know. I feel weird. Does that make sense? I don't know if you guys know what I'm on about. I'm nobody special. Do you know what I mean? You might think I am, but I don't think I am. So that's why I struggle with. Yeah. Anyway, Avatars wrote, "Sir, I will send a message. Thank you. I think you already have. I saw a message pop up while I was doing the live." Nicole's wrote, "There has been Bigfoot seen with orbs. Do you think they're aware of each other outside of Earth?" Absolutely, yeah. If we take my thoughts on Bigfoot being an alien species and the ones that's here crashed at least 10,000 years ago, then sorry, I was just thinking something there. Then we know that they have been, or people have said that they've seen Bigfoots with orbs, and people have seen Bigfoots with other alien types. So there's no, and we've had people talking about the other alien types like Linda Moulton Howe, Major Ed Dames, Ingo Swann, all talking about remote viewing and stuff, seeing little greys with these orbs. So if the greys have got the orbs and Bigfoot's hangs around with the greys, and people have seen Bigfoot's walking with an orb, chances are they know about orbs. So yes, I would say the answer to that is yes. Thank you for your question. It's an interesting question. Go number 3 in the class for that. History and Coins wrote, "Waved tried having a mod moving it doesn't work." Oh, sorry, we've tried having a mod. It doesn't work. Oh, that was when Avatar was suggesting playing a game so that we can have people up and stuff. We have tried the mod part of that. Nicole's wrote, aren't there some companies that help you get sorted out with issues on these platforms? History and Coins knows a little bit more about that than me, but I've spoke to them. I've sent messages direct to them. They say, "You're not banned," and I say, "Well, how the hell can I tell you or tell the viewers right at the start how many people's going to join my live?" I said, "I'm not a flicking fortune teller. Every single time I can tell them how many people's going to join and what the limit is." So yeah, even if I mean, History and Coins did once. Do you remember? She managed to get someone to talk to someone or whatever it was, and the next time we did the live, it went up and we was like, "Wow, it worked!" And then the live after that went straight back down. But yeah, that definitely worked. So clearly it was clearly I'm limited. Otherwise, it wouldn't have went back down. Same. History and Coins wrote, "Yours won't be suppressed when I'm finished." Thank you very much. Scrolling down, people chatting to each other. Don't puff, puff, pass. As wrote. So looking forward to your movie. How did you manage to make it? Make it all. Thank you, Nicole. Out of interest. So I started in February, I think it was. And so the first thing I did, obviously I'm a film director. I edit. I've been doing it since I was 15, so that's what I enjoy doing. So while I kept looking at AI, seeing whether or not it was able to catch up with what I would be able to do, finally Kling. This is going back, as I say, back to February. Kling was the one that came out, and it was 1080p. That was the newest back then. Obviously now there's 4K and 20 seconds, 30 seconds, all that kind of stuff. But back then it was 10 seconds and didn't even have the ability to add what they do now, which is I can't remember what they call it, where you can put loads of pictures and then reference that. They didn't have that when I first started. So I did a little test with Kling to see whether consistency of the characters, because that is the most important thing. Because if you don't, I mean, you'll probably notice one or two bits in this movie that's not 100% great. But again, I was using Kling all the way through. And the reason why I used Kling as opposed to some of the newer ones that's been out, Sea Dance and whatever else, Sea Dance is very expensive. B, when Sea Dance first came out, it was only $720 and I was already doing 1080p. And Sea Dance rejects... Sorry, my boy's in nicking milk.
Oh, it's splashed my eye.
Sea Dance rejects certain people if it thinks that it's someone in the public eye. And so I did a couple of tests with Sea Dance just to see, and it said fouled, not eligible. And I thought, well, how the hell am you going to make a movie with, when you want to use a particular character, and it just suddenly says not eligible? So I thought, sod this, I'll stick with Kling. And Kling hasn't done me too bad. You'll watch the film, and there is a couple of bits. You got to remember, I one of the first people put out back Clark, one of the first people to ever do a whole feature film trying to keep it consistent. So that was the first hurdle, the consistency. Bye. The second was the audio. So I use 11 Labs. Sorry if I'm boring everyone, but I use 11 Labs. It's got a feature in there called Voice Changer. So obviously I use a text to voice for my documentaries, but this voice changer, so I would render, so in Kling I would tell it to actually say the lines. Even though the voice isn't the voice I want, I would tell it to say the lines and I would direct it, and my God, the amount of times I read. There's one funny one. I wanted a transition. I thought, instead of me doing a transition, see if it can do a transition itself, a nice, smart, clever transition between one scene and a new scene. So I had this lady in a kitchen, and she's just put the phone down, and I told it, right, I want it to transition to a beach scene with something walking. I'm not going to spoil it. With something walking along on the beach. So anyway, it does it. It finishes the render thing, and then so I'm watching this woman. She puts the phone down, and the camera pans down, and there's a beach in her kitchen floor. No, that's not how it's supposed to work. So there's basically for every one shot that I want, I had to probably do about 6 generations of it, which is a lot. It burnt through money quite quickly. But once I'd done that with the voice, I would then render that voice out. So if, for example, it said, "Hi Jacob, how are you?" I would render that as an MP3, take it into 11 Labs, into the voice changer, pick a character's voice that I've already got. So some of the actors were real actors, and so they allowed me to use their voice, which I used 11 Labs to create their own voice. So it would say Jacob, it would say Enlil, it would say Enki, it would say Julie, and I'll choose whoever it is that I'm fixing the voice for. So on this occasion, it would be Dr. Geroid. So I'd click Dr. Geroid, and then I'd click Generate, and the wording where it says, "Hi," leaves a gap, "Jacob, how are you?" it now comes out, "Hi, Jacob, how are you?" in the correct voice, the correct speech. So that's what I've done. Yeah, so it's a lot of hard work to make a movie. Lot of time, a lot of time. I'd set things going. I'd do like 10 or 11 sequences, and then I would go off to work, and then when I come back, I'd watch them and I'd go, "Oh crap, none of those are any good." The hardest part, and I'm guessing this will be for all AI at the moment, the hardest part is having two characters on the screen at the same time. And what I've learned, I lost so much time at the beginning, is if they're not looking at each other, so if you do an over-the-shoulder shot, if they're not looking at each other, if they're slightly looking off, ever so slightly, when you tell it to say dialogue, it will then turn its head, the character will turn its head and look the way that it thinks it's looking. So you need the eye line to be 100% in, and so with that in itself is a trick to try and get the eye line right. Because if it's not, you're just going to burn through different goes each time. Otherwise, it looks stupid as well. You need the eye line. So yes, I have done a video on some of the way that I did this movie. So if you're interested in that, it's on my Patreon page. You can get to everything from my website, or just send me a message and I'll happily waffle on about it. Avatar's right. Okay, I'm back. Just sent 200 voice messages to you. Thank you very much, Avatar. Scrolling down. Don't puff is right. I see. I'm not sure that was referring to. Ella Rose wrote 1947 crash. Our ranch was involved. Was it? See, this is the thing. You've probably heard where people say, "Oh, there was two crashes," and that it was brought down. The one in the ranchers, the one we all know. It was brought down because of the military having technology to bring it down, and they knew about it. I can't see that, because you wouldn't bring it down and then wait 2 weeks and let a rancher find it and then tell the local sheriff and then him put it out on a newspaper if you knew you was bringing it down. So there's a few errors in people's stories back then. I'm not saying their stories, I'm talking about the numpties nowadays that keep coming out with stupid things without thinking it through. But yes, definitely there was something there, wasn't there? As you say, your ranch was involved, so I'm sure you've got some stories to tell on that. Avatar's right. Yes, the soul, eternal energy in motion within Avatar. Yes, yeah, that's what I was referring to. That's well said. History and Coins right. I'm here just taking meds. Well, fingers crossed everything's okay for you. Avatar's wrote an Anunnaki spirit within a human avatar working it out karma as creator species. Yeah, could say that. That's interesting. Whoever's clicking the hearts, thank you very much. It doesn't. So what happens is we're limited to sort of 15 people, and then we can break free of that and get to 30 sometimes, but it does seem to drop back down to 15. Carlersville or Carlers Valley Val has wrote, that's probably how we survived the Neanderthal overthrow. So funny enough, in the second movie that I'm going to be doing, there is a sequence where the Anunnaki kept the humans away from the Neanderthals. When I say humans, the Homo sapiens. And the reason why they would have done that is because they don't want them to have a fight, because they don't want to lose their workers. Neanderthals they don't care about. Homo sapiens they did, because they're the worker force, primitive workers. So they kept them away from them, which makes a lot of sense. But at some point or another, the human population grew too big. Homo sapiens grew too many, that they needed to start branching out. And the problem there is, once they start branching out, they need more food for these humans, and so they built those stone circles, which generated actually energy to create crops that grew quicker. Believe it or not, go watch my amazing documentary on the stones. That's what they were for, and that's why you have anyway. So yes, so in my second movie, the Anunnaki take over about 30 humans to where the Neanderthals are, just to see what happens. I'm not going to spoil it, but it's a great little scene because the Homo sapiens have never had aggression at that point, believe it or not. Other than themselves, they wouldn't have come across Neanderthals, and so Neanderthals who know how to hunt and survive and not be given food by the Anunnaki and not have, because the Anunnaki had Ninurta and his brother in charge of sheep and grain, so that's where the food would have come from to sustain the Homo sapiens. But Neanderthals would have had to have fend for themselves, as they would have done for a long, long time. And so in the second movie, Enki and Nimna take over 30 humans and leave them in an area where there's Neanderthals, and you can probably guess what happens. Lots of stones being thrown at the Homo sapiens who don't know what to do. So it's a great little scene. And then, funny enough, I actually then put in a little bit of dialogue in there about Nimna saying maybe we should make these Homo sapiens a bit more aggressive, which might end up biting them back on the bum later on. But that's for another movie. But yes, yeah, thank you for that. Avatar wrote, can you imagine how hated a Anunnaki human hybrid would have been by the Anunnaki created slaves? Yes, absolutely. That's the reason why Adam, out of Adam and Eve, or Adam and Eve, or Adapa and Taitai, were told by one of the Anunnaki who didn't like the idea that they were actual descendants from the Anunnaki and a human, or Homo sapien, told them to eat the fruit, which would have been their own fruit from their own planet on their ship. And, of course, Adam and Eve did, and it didn't kill them. We know all this because we got another tablet where Enki tells Adapa not to eat the food when he goes to the home. He was frightened it would kill him. So, and of course, we know that the Anunnaki called bad people serpents. We've got tablets where they tell us they called bad people other Anunnaki serpents. So it doesn't take an Einstein or an Our True History to work out that the serpent was another Anunnaki. So yes, they didn't like the idea of the bloodline. And of course, when you look at the bloodline, how they inbred and everything else, their bloodline was so pure, sadly. I mean, you could say, well, it's not really pure if you're breeding with but you get what I'm on about. They tried to keep the bloodline pure, and then suddenly there's a new species that's part of the Anunnaki because they bred with them. Thank you, Springy. That's the reason why that Anunnaki told them to eat. And then if you read the Bible and the book of Adam and Eve and the Tale of Adapa, you can see that after Enki finds out about the serpent, or the Anunnaki that told him, he didn't kill Adam and Eve. He sent them down to his garden, which was on Earth. And so, if you read the Bible, it says this is a second home for them. Hang on a minute. How can they already have a home? And they weren't even used to it going dark because they obviously had lights on all the time on the spaceship. So, spot on, genius. That's something I'm really proud of, actually. Thank you, Amy C. How are you, Amy C? Hope you had a nice time wherever you are. Out in a forest, maybe. Chantel's wrote, evening. Hi, Chantel. Nice of you to join as well. Hope you're having a nice evening. Avatars gave me a finger heart. I must remember to add the heart at the end of that sentence. Avatars gave me... moving on. Avatars wrote, perhaps Inanna was put in a coma and held in a state of limbo while her soul journeyed to the underworld. Well, technically they were in the underworld. The underworld was a physical place. So it wasn't, I know people think that the underworld is like, hell or something, or some, but no, literally they tell us, they know. I was so lucky when I was researching where hell was, not that I ever thought I'd find it. I found a tablet with the translation, and they used the three words for the same location on the same tablet. If they didn't do that, it could have been ambiguous, but they called it. So they were talking about Absu, which is Africa. Mainstream will say no, Absu's fresh water, but I've even argued with AI on this, and I said, right, so explain why they planted a tree in the Absu. Oh, well, maybe it was, and it was supposed to be deep water, the Absu. So, well, maybe, and I said, shut up, stupid AI. I said, you're trying to clutch at straws because you're copying what silly people and I mean silly people, or they know that that's what it was referring to. I mean, like when they took the hominid in the tablet Enki and Nimna, it says nip off the clay, which is a physical being, life, organic material, nip off the clay from the top of Abzu, and the top of Abzu was Levant. Guess where Neanderthals were? Levant. When you piece it all together, anyway. So yes, so the underworld was actually the name for a place. So the Anunnaki called it the Netherworld. This is all on the same tablet. Netherworld, Underworld, and Lower World. So it's the same thing. It's not like there's different parts to it. Now, you could argue, well, maybe the Underworld is actually a cave system, inside a mountain, in the Lower World. So the Lower World was classed as the bottom half of the Abzu. Funny enough, TikTok's asking me to do a little jigsaw here just to make sure I'm real, but they're the ones that does it so I can do audio. But yeah, they want anyway. So yeah, thank you, Avatar. So yeah, history and culture. I have synthetic tendons in my knee. Do you really? Wow. Are you sure you're not a Terminator? History and coins. I'm worried now. History and Coins wrote, laugh out loud, you're as bad as me, God. I can't remember what I was saying at that point, but hopefully it wasn't rude, because I know you're not rude. Benjamin's wrote, box open. I like to get to the end. When I say that, I end up with more questions, but basically, because there's questions below, I can see it says 63. There may not be 63 questions. It may be 10, loads of people chatting between each other, but there's 63 messages, and I like to get through them all before I get to allow someone up, unless I knew that I was going to let people up at the start, because all these people that ask questions are sitting there thinking, please don't let someone up. I know I would, because I'll be going, I want you just to answer my question. So if you don't mind, if I can get to the end of these questions and then let people up, that'd be cool. History and Coins wrote, the two who asked to go up, the host is waiting until all the questions are done. So yeah, I know I waffle on a bit, but sometimes, hopefully, I give enough answer. I hate people when you listen to these things and they skip over stuff, and I can't do that. I have to give as much as I can. Scrolling down. People are chatting to each other. Nicole's wrote, could we assume that Nibiru has the same air quality as here, as they did not need special equipment? Yeah, I mean, that's as close as we're going to get, really. I know they aged quicker here on Earth. Could it have been the sun? Could it have been the atmosphere? Could it have been the gravity? Could it have been the air? So I don't know whether or not it's that different. But yes, if we believe the Moorhen translations, where it says that Nibiru, when it smashed into Tiamat, which broke up and became Earth Key, it seeded life when it smashed into it, then we would have some of the same, life structure that Nibiru has. In other words, plants, water, whatever it is that was seeded from Nibiru. So you could say, well, then their oxygen is the same as ours. But then look at the little greys; they do seem to breathe out air, but they are androids. So, or the Orion ones are. So, are they? Are they allowed out for only a certain amount of time? Is oxygen on every other planet always the same? There's just planets out there that the atmosphere, such as Venus, is supposedly sort of like methane and gases and stuff like that. So you could say, well, if there is life on there, then it certainly wouldn't breathe out oxygen. It's a fair question. I can only say that they were here, they did the things that they said they did. In which case, the quality of air must have been good enough for them not to needed any equipment, as you say. So yes, it's a fair question. Go number 2 in the class for that. History and Coins, yes, you need to watch it in one sitting. That's my film, by the way, that History and Coins is referring to. So yes, it's a thank you very much, History and Coins. It's a 2-hour movie, give or take 10 minutes. So please, when you watch it Saturday, if you do watch it any time after Saturday when it drops, try and watch it. Don't think, oh, it's an AI movie. It's gonna, it's a proper movie. It's like, got a story in it. It's got acting in it. So try and watch it as a proper movie, as opposed to, oh, this is AI, this is going to be an Anunnaki, I'll pause it, I'll watch snippets, because most people make AI clips, which, after 5 minutes of them, you're like thinking, yeah, that's enough. But mine's like a proper movie that you'd watch. So please enjoy. Right, my son wants to watch it. He is waiting to watch it. I'm making a blog. Thank you very much for that. Yes. Yeah, it comes out Saturday, so on YouTube, but you can get to it. I created a new website URL because everyone was going to a different Anunnaki film, which turned out they spelt it. People, when they were looking, was using 2 N's. It's actually spelled ANU. Anu is the same as King Anu, which is space. It was originally the word for, it was originally a name for another Anunnaki, but long story. But yes, ANU. But there is other people out there that spell it with ANNU. And so someone back in 2014 created a website, wait for it, called Anunnaki Film with 2 N's.com. And it was talking about them doing a series of Anunnaki movies. This was back then, so they would have had to have been real movies. Obviously, they never got anywhere with it because that was 2014 and it just never went anywhere. But so they didn't coin that URL after seeing mine. You could say, well, I coined it after seeing theirs, but I didn't know because I spelled mine with 1 N. But so anyway, so I've now got a new URL, which is OTH. How easy is that, everyone? OTH and then number 8, because there's 8 movies. So it's OTH 8, and you'll just get redirected to myanunnakifilm.com, where you can click on a button and it will take you to YouTube, where you can watch the movie. So or save it to watch on big screen or whatever. History and Coins, my son is 7'1". Yes, I remember you mentioning that before. Very tall lad. Tuckers wrote, did the Anunnaki pray or something similar? I know they weren't religious, by the way. Yeah, so they didn't pray. There's no, well, I say they didn't, but there's no mention of them praying. They had us pray, obviously, and a prayer was praise, really. The original prayers were praise, and then over time prayers became begging. That's how it really was. We so the prayers were like hymns and things like that. But over time, where the Anunnaki weren't doing things that the humans wanted, maybe they moved away or whatever, the prayers became, please, my child's not well, please send rain, please do this, please do that. But originally the prayers were just, a praise to Ninurta, a praise to, oh God, you just look it up. There's praise to everyone that did anything at all. I pray he walked down to the corner shop. Praise him. But did the Anunnaki pray? No. I mean, the closest we have is where the Morhans say that they mentioned the unseen creator of everything. But, same as the 4,000 religions right now, they all seem to think that there's an unseen something. So I think the Anunnaki, in their hearts, probably knew that there was no such creator of everything, but maybe they did. Maybe they knew that there was a hadron collider in another universe that created a mini universe by smashing particles together. But no, I've never read them praying to anything other than us praying to them, or praise to them, should I say. Thank you for your question. Avatars wrote, a fan is nice on a hot day, though. yeah, I've got one actually blowing on me now. Tuckers wrote, what were the chances Nibiru and Earth had the same atmosphere for the Anunnaki to survive on Earth? That's pretty similar to the question to what Nicole had asked. So if we take it that Nibiru did seed Earth when it smashed Tiamat, which broke up and became Earth in the asteroid belt, then a very, very high chance that eventually the atmosphere. But you could say, well, look at the atmosphere supposedly going back billions of years ago when you have volcanoes, etc. Would our atmosphere have been suitable for our life right at that moment in time? Probably not. So your point is, I guess, is how come right when they turned up 450,000 years ago that our planet was sufficient enough in the same oxygen they required when possibly a billion years earlier it would have been a no-go. So I guess it's luck and fate, really, and destiny. Because you're right. I mean, roll on another billion years, and would we be able to survive our own oxygen? Probably not. So it seems to be a Goldilocks time for them. So yes, it's a miraculous thing if you look at it in that way. Now, whether or not because obviously if Earth hadn't been seeded, then would they have come here? They would have needed masks and everything else to mine for the gold. So yes, it's a fair point. The fact that it just so happened to be right now, because even after the Great Flood, obviously the land masses changed, which would have changed the atmosphere again, because you ended up with a lot more water covering a lot more of the land surface, and as we know, with the green plants and trees and everything else that gives us back the oxygen. If there's less of that, then there's less oxygen. So even then, are we struggling now without even realizing that we should? Is that why we're dying at 80, 85, 86, that sort of age? Is that because obviously we know not mainstream, but companies put all sorts of crap in our food? But are we dying early because the oxygen levels? I mean, if you go up high, you can't breathe. The oxygen changes just a little bit up on a mountain. So you're right. The chances that they came here and it was right for them right at that moment in time is phenomenal. Yeah, I it's just I guess a 1 in a billion chance, but it seemed to work. So it's a fair point. Get a gold star for that. Scrolling down. Jonah has wrote, if you believe in Xenu, are you a Scientologist? So what Jonah's saying is so basically L. Ron Hubbard knocked up this thing that ended up becoming Scientology, and he basically made up a load of crap about some character on another planet, bringing people here, throwing them in a volcano and all this sort of stuff. So Jonah's asked hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, if you believe in that, well, technically the only way you would end up believing in it or even knowing about it technically would have been through L. Ron Hubbard, because no one else has ever mentioned that I'm aware of. It was something that he used to be a writer, by the way, a sort of science fiction writer. That's why you get Battlefield Earth, which sadly was actually more closer to the Anunnaki than his bloody Xenu crap. But I think he learnt that after. So Battlefield Earth was written. His book was written well after his Xenu crap that came out. So yes. So technically, the only real way you should have learnt about Xenu would have been through Scientology. In which case, the chances are, if you do believe that crap, then yes, you probably are a Scientologist. History and Coins wrote, I've only seen one spot that I picked up and I'm experiencing at this too. Not sure what I was talking about at that point. Sorry, History and Coins, sorry. Clark, History and Coins wrote, love you, Clark. Oh, bless. He heard me on the live chat and nicked milk while I was on it. Should have locked the fridge. I know I should have. Amy C's put laughing heart faces. Thank you very much. History and Coins just wrote, says almost my full real name over a couple of characters. Don't know what that's referring to. I'm confused on that one. Forgive me. History but laughing faces. Ella has wrote, yes, a fake site set up. That was the other Anunnaki one. Yeah, but I looked at the Who Is, and it looked like it was set up in 2014. I don't know why, because I didn't do anything. It's weird, but yeah. And they still pay for the domain. That's what's even weirder. Scrolling down. D-Boys wrote, what purpose of Lilith in Varna's anonymous tree that Gilgamesh drove away along with the snake? So from my research, Lilith, if you're referring to the Lilith from the Bible, Lilith was the very first Homo sapien woman, called after the planet Tiamat, called Tiamat. And she couldn't give birth. And so in the Bible it comes out that she doesn't want to have relationships with Adam, or she does, but can't have kids. That was all it was just she couldn't have kids, which is why Ningazida, who was Enki's son, was watching them. If you read the Mohan translations, he was watching them, the two Homo sapiens, Adamu and Tiamat, and they were doing the deed, but she wasn't getting pregnant. So in the end, he took something from the rib of Enki, believe it or not, and did. We've got the tablet telling us that he has a bad rib, and from doing, they did something to him, and they took whatever it was from the rib and probably injected it into her or him and her, and then they could have kids. So that's the Lilith that I'm aware of. I would need to read the story of the Gilgamesh and the tree again. I know the story. She loved the wood, so this is a different story to the one I just mentioned. So Lilith saw this tree and she wanted to make a bed out of it, if I remember correctly. And there was a snake in there, and I think there was something else in there, a bird or something. And I think she was trying to get rid of them. Forgive me, I'm trying to remember it. She was trying to get rid of them, and they wouldn't leave. And so in the end, she asked the mighty Gilgamesh, and that's why I say, he must have been strong. For the Anunnaki to call him mighty, he must have been strong. He was 16.5 foot, according to the texts. So 16.5 foot, and some of the other Anunnaki were possibly 20 foot from judging by doors and things like that. So he wasn't one of the tallest, but again, if you go to the Epic of Gilgamesh, he probably worked out. He probably had muscles, big muscles. Everyone said that he was strong as an ox, and you don't sort of get really strong unless you've got some sort of workout routine. And so I believe he did work out, and that's why I don't think that Gilgamesh died at an older age. So when you see these videos of this character, there's a couple of the same video type of thing where it was filmed. I don't know if you guys remember it. So there's a guy in a wooden box, and people say, "Oh, look, it's Gilgamesh. He's in stasis." Well, first of all, it's a wooden box, and second of all, it's not Gilgamesh. There's no muscles on him whatsoever. He's not 16.5 foot tall, and he would have died older than that. So it's ridiculous how people don't bother doing research when they show these videos out. What I actually think they were was waxworks. So I used to work on a long story, but yeah, I think they're waxworks for a film that was probably done in the Middle East. So yeah, I can't remember the story 100% verbatim, so I can't remember if there was a Lilith mentioned in that story. Sorry, D-Boy. D-Boy's right. Why is she included? What's the moral involvement of Lilith? Again, I can't remember that Lilith in that Inanna story about the tree. Jonas wrote, why are you using AI to create movies? So I'm a film director by trade. Been doing it since I was 15. Music videos, feature films, adverts. Done adverts for all sorts of companies, rally bikes, you name it. over the years. So I am a film director, and I love making films. I love directing people. But the Anunnaki film, which would have ended up being probably 8 movies long, which it will be, is going to be a hard sell to any studio whatsoever, because they're going to go, hang on a minute, you're saying that God is an alien? Yeah, right. We're not going to distribute it. Look at me now. I'm limited to 30 people, 15, and then if, like I say, if we're lucky, we get to 30. But it will go back down to 15 if they boot people off, which they do. TikTok does boot people off my live. So if I'm limited just on TikTok, Instagram, not Instagram, Facebook, sorry, YouTube, then there's no way I'm going to get that particular movie made. Now, when CGI first came out, I started to make a movie in CGI using Lightwave, Maya, 3D Studio Max, a long time ago. I spent 6 months, wait for it, 6 months creating this AI movie, which was, it was probably crap thinking about it. But anyway, and my hard drive died. I lost it. Lost the whole 6 months of this freaking film that I was making. It wasn't an Anunnaki movie. But so the point is, I was using CGI as a medium to tell a story. People use pen and piece of paper, and they call it cartoons, and that's a medium for a story. And so mine, this new one, is using AI, which is a medium for my story. And trust me, it's not one button press and it suddenly makes the movie. I have to write the script. I literally have to direct it and edit it like a normal movie. So it requires skill. That's why we're not flooded with them. I mean, I've done this in six months, and I've got a normal job to do. You should have, in fact, the producer that I know is getting someone from Fiverr to make his Jesus Trials film. It's called You Must Decide. So he's got this script on the Jesus Trial, and he's paying someone some money on Fiverr to do this from Nigeria. Believe it or not, the guy's actually doing something. He's not scamming the producer, but he sent me the clips of it, and of course the people over there are probably using LTX or something like that, which is a free thing, because he's not charging too much, compared to the amount that I've spent. But he, sorry, my train of thought's gone. But he sent me the videos of so far of what the guy's been doing over in Nigeria. And the guy doesn't know how to edit, doesn't know how. 1 minute someone's there, next minute they just disappear, like bloody a teleporter disappears someone. So in other words, you do need to know how to make a movie. You do need the coherency of a story. You need to think about how the viewers are going to be looking at it. You can't just press a button. So it's not easy. And my daughter's totally against it. She won't watch it. Because she says, Dad, I'm sure it's amazing and great, and this is the first one you've done, and so they're only going to get better anyway. But it's AI, and I don't want to watch it. I don't like what AI represents. And I said, well, it's a medium. To me, it's another medium. She's like, yeah, but they're data centers, and they're using the water, and she's a millennial, and the world's all going to end, and all that kind of thing. So yes, so basically to me, I've used it because it's a medium that no other studio would allow me to get the funding for to make these kind of movies. I've got sequences in there. So if I budgeted that up to a proper film, some of the sequences I wouldn't even been able to shoot. I've got car chases around Iraq. That's not going to happen. You'd have to try and fake that somehow in green screen, and just wouldn't happen. So I've got sequences in that film that would never happen if I was trying to shoot it real. So I would have ended up using CGI anyways, in which case, yeah. So that's why I used AI for this, because there's 8 movies. All right, it's cost me a few quid, but I thoroughly enjoy making stuff that people can watch, whether it's AI or whether it's other type of movies. Nicole's right. Did the Anunnaki have issues with genetic disorders due to inbreeding? They never said it if they did. Is that a taboo thing that they wouldn't have said? For all I know, some of their children may have come out handicapped or deformed or disfigured or something, but they didn't say it. So I can't say that there wasn't, but I can't say that there was. So I'm afraid I can't answer that. Logically, inbreeding over a certain amount of time, but again, they're more than likely copper blood, blue blood, and so they may have different abilities to us in terms of not having the issues by inbreeding. Obviously, they were smart enough not to breed directly with their sisters. They would do it with their half sisters and half brothers, so they know not to directly do it. So I guess that's a good thing. Deep Boys wrote, and why plant a tree to cut down for a throne? Was it a throne? I thought it was a bed. When a large tree everywhere. So I'd need to go back and read that particular thing. I think it was a bed. I don't think it was a throne. But yeah, she loved this tree. So it was something. Again, the Anunnaki, I've said many a time, I do think they're a bit simple in some ways. There's, like, for example, there's a religion maybe out there that believes in something, and regardless of how stupid it is, they still believe it. And so the Anunnaki are a bit like that. They have their own ideas, and that's it. They'll go along with it regardless of how stupid it is. That's what I found. But maybe maybe it was a tree from their home planet that they planted here, and it's a lovely tree. And I don't know. It doesn't really say why they did it, but she loved the tree. That's what I remember reading. I haven't read that for a while, so forgive me. Scrolling down, Amy Sees wrote, I walked too much this week. My feet literally hurt. Well, that's your problem, isn't it? Should have been in that ocean, in that lake, rowing instead. No, well done for going out, and hopefully you didn't get sunburnt too much. Cotswolds wrote, thanks for doing the Jordan codices. Seemed to finish premature. Would love to know where that was going. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Jay. The Jordan codices. Yeah, I would need to have something, a little trigger to remind me what that was about. I can't remember. I know I did a thing on it, but I've now forgotten what that one is. Sorry. There's a lot of codices that are in my head, so I can't remember which particular one. I know someone asked me, and I think it was probably you, to look into it, which I did, but I cannot now remember what it is. I'll be honest. I'm not perfect. Jonas wrote, do you think some of our languages originated from the Anunnaki? So it's a fair question. So if you go with the Anunnaki, what their language would have been first, I believe it was the Sumerian language. It suddenly appeared. It was the oldest language, and we've got tablets, for example, that were directly written by the Anunnaki to another Anunnaki, such as Inanna to Dumuzi. And so that was in Sumerian, not in another language. So if any language that they had suggests to me that was a Sumerian language. Now, as time moved on, the languages got mixed up. And the reason why, if we believe well, in fact, there is kind of evidence of it now, that there was what was called in the translations a sky tower, but it was another ziggurat, where Marduk was creating a ziggurat, but using as many humans as he could to build it, and this was in Babylon. And so, long story short, Enlil destroyed it. Long story short, and then made all the humans have different languages in different areas, so that he couldn't get that many people again to help build one building, which was bigger than the one, biggest one, and Marduk shouldn't have had the biggest one. So that's where the language has changed, and the Sumerian language is its own language. There's no derivation off of it, however you pronounce that. Other languages do. The only two languages that don't seem to have their own derivatives off of is the Basque and the Sumerian. And the Basque, if we believe which that's another story about the percentage of Rh negative blood. But anyway, so the other languages, which all do seem to spout off of other things. Now, there is some similarities in old Egyptian prior to the hieroglyphics, to the old Sumerian prior to the actual. Now, I don't think they were prior. Mainstream say, oh, there's. I think it was just people that couldn't read or write. There's people out there that couldn't read or write, so they use pictographs. And so that's what I think it was. I don't think everyone went to school and learned everything properly. So that I think they're at the same age. Whereas mainstream say that the cuneiform is newer. Sumerian cuneiform is newer than the pictographs from Sumerian, but as Dr. Irvin Finkel, who's the head curator of the British Museum, who can read Sumerian, said in one of his interviews that he believes the tablets are actually even older than what we are told. So he basically is saying the same thing that I'm saying. So the only languages really that we can say would have come from the Anunnaki is pretty much all the oldest languages, and then over time, different. Like now we've got things. Our dictionary changes every year with new words being put in, new words taken out that we don't use anymore, and so that's how But that's just over a very short period of time. Imagine doing that over 1,000 years, you end up with almost a brand new language. So yes, the languages did come from the Anunnaki one way or another, whether it was the original languages such as Babylonian, Hittite, and so on, and then as time moved on, people got conquered by other things and they integrated them and all that kind of stuff. So but yes, if languages originated from the Anunnaki one way or another. Deep Boys wrote, thoughts on sun or stars themselves being alive, such as parasite or bacterial plasma with consciousness. It's an interesting question. Thank you for that. Go number 1 in the class for that. So the Anunnaki described celestial objects as alive. I did look into what mainstream's saying. They do say that they think that planets may be alive. Some scientists do. Now, whether or not they got consciousness about them, or whether it's alive as in like grass, for example, that's alive, I don't know. But the Anunnaki seem to talk about planets. They call them deities, which is basically another word for gods, which is what, believe it or not, we see. That's where the whole thing gets mixed up. But that's why the Genesis was saying that the gods were preparing, as it actually should be translated, gods preparing heaven and earth. Gods, which was planets preparing the heaven and earth, which is exactly what happened back then, where they were getting set in their stations. We call them orbits. So I don't know about the parasite side of it, or bacteria. It's interesting. I mean, if we look at how planets are formed, if we go with mainstream's version and the Bible and the older tablets, planets are formed where the water in space basically mixes with something, dust or whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but basically the ANUNNAKI called it the Mamu. So that water's mingled with Mamu, whatever Mamu is. And then it created Tiamat, which was the first planet. And so mainstream say that they've seen a planet forming in another solar system from the water that's there. And of course, it's not our water, it's classed as heavy water. So if a planet is formed like that over time, then would it be alive? Probably not. So that's just my take on it. The History and Coins wrote, doesn't help autocorrect spells things wrong too. History and Coins wrote, or watch my profile, me blog beat up midweek. There will be a link to the film. Thank you. I'll share that if you don't mind once you've done it. History and Coins wrote, then I'll do a full blog review. Oh, brilliant. Remember, it's a good film no matter what you thought of it now. I know History and Coins has watched it. Cotswolds wrote, if the crossing to the Abzu Hades was so rough, why didn't the Anunnaki fly there? I believe that the place, obviously they flew there, but they needed to get onto a boat. So I think it was inside a mountain. So I think it goes through somehow this water, whatever it is, the rapids, because you know as well as me that the story of Enki when he goes there, the boat's rocking all over the place, and there's a ferryman. They actually have the word ferryman, taking them to the underworld. So that's where we get all the underworld. And of course, then there's gates that they have to go through. So I think it's inside a mountain. And the more I research, the more I believe it is inside a mountain. So I think they go as far as they can, and then they have to get a boat to go the rest of the way, which is why there's a particular person, whether it's an Anunnaki or a human, that was taking them on this boat instead of them just grabbing a boat and going. But the description was that the water was really rough and throwing them around. So clearly, it's something that someone had some skill on this boat to traverse that water to get to the underworld, which was a place probably inside a mountain, which is where Ereshkigal and Nergal were. Everything leads me to that. That it was inside a mountain. So it's a fair question. Go number 1 in the class for that. That's a fair question. Nin7 has wrote, Anunnaki's planet is doomed. Be very interested to know why you wrote that. Obviously, if you look at it from the perspective of their time compared to ours, it's only been 4 months since Jesus passed, which means when they left us, about 1,000 years ago, so 3 odd months ago, give or take. When they left, and moved around probably to Antarctica, if they had problems with their atmosphere still, they would have probably still been using us instead of moving off to Africa, to Antarctica. So I'd be interested to know, thank you, Jay, I'd be interested to know why you say the planet's doomed. Cotswolds asked the question. Thank you, Cotswolds. I'm glad someone did, so that I can now hear the reply. Cotswolds wrote a fair point, actually. He wrote back to Nin7. Though I guess all planets are doomed eventually. Yes, they probably are. I mean, our solar system will smash into another solar system at some point. Nin7's wrote back to Cotswolds, been told by them as a shapeshifter here. So the Anunnaki weren't shapeshifters. We've got carvings of them, and there's zero evidence that they were shapeshifters. So I'm hoping you're not saying that the Anunnaki were shapeshifters, because obviously they weren't. We've got millions of carvings of what they look like, and not one of them is any different from what they are. There's no carvings. I mean, you could argue that, well, hang on a minute, look at the gods with the eagle head, or Sobek with the crocodile head, and so on and so on. But they are masks. If you look at the Anunnaki's texts, so for example, Ninurta was given wings and was given a mask for doing a good job by defeating Anzu. So we can kind of say that those were masks that the Egyptian gods had. So yeah, and once you realise who those Egyptian gods were, which I've done videos on, so Sobek was just a demigod son of Set, so he was nobody important. I can go on. I've done the videos if you're interested. Go to my website. History and Coins wrote to Nin7, evidence to back up your claim. Tuckers wrote, if there's a LHC on another universe that had created ours, then who created theirs? That's the question. Yeah, I know I have done that. So, but what Tucker's saying is there were mentioned that there may have been a Hadron Collider on another universe where they smashed particles together and created a mini universe. How did their universe start? I have no idea how theirs started, but it does make sense that we've tried to create the God particle, and who knows, we may have done it. And so if we did create a God particle, who's to say that it's not a little mini universe, but massive to the things inside, but mini to us? That makes a lot of sense to me, because you got what started the Big Bang, 2 particles in a Hadron Collider. Is it expanding? Well, it probably would be. Depends on the time frame of the universe or the planet that other universe is in. So, for example, Nibiru's time is different to our time. In the middle of space, it's virtually no time. In the middle of nowhere in space, because they don't have the density to create the time. So, for all we know, on their planet, it may have been just one day since they created our universe, for example. But how their universe started out, I wouldn't know. But it makes a lot more sense to me, because everyone says, "Oh, it started with two things bashing together." That's exactly what we do now with the Hadron Collider. So there's a possibility there. So, but I can't answer the other bit. History and Contract Hat to Nin 7. How do you know it was ANUNNAKI? Did they say I'm Anunnaki? Nin 7's right back to History Coins. How can you bring evidence if a planet is not doomed? Genexis wrote, is it possible Earth is protected by the Federation because of the Anunnakis ruling Earth? Well, it's a very good question. That's what I thought a long time ago. So, I mean, back in the 80s, I heard that Earth was under quarantine. And then, I can't remember how many years ago, 10 years ago or something like that, I heard that the quarantine period ran out, which I thought was interesting. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. But it makes sense because, obviously, aliens are not coming here and introducing themselves. So there's certainly a system where they're not making themselves known. Obviously to military, possibly because we chase them down, so they had no choice. But to the regular folks like us, why are they not letting us know? But if you say that there's a quarantine, or was a quarantine, why were aliens still abducting us unless the quarantine allowed that? So there's lots of ifs and buts. So I hear what you're saying. I did think it was probably to do with the Anunnaki, because obviously they would know of other aliens when they see them coming into our solar system, and probably said, "Back off! This is our planet." That's what I would imagine. But yeah, so I can't answer it, I'm afraid. But it's a good question. Go number 1 in the class for that. Nin 7 wrote back to history because most of them are incarnated here as a shapeshifter. Prove in my profile. Sorry, Nin 7. So are you saying that the Anunnaki that physically never mentioned once whatsoever that they change or shapeshift, somehow can shapeshift, I guess, into the Anunnaki? Thank you, Bella. Sorry, I'm just trying to get my head around this. So if they can shapeshift, thank you, Jay. Sorry, I'm trying to get my head around this. So if they can shapeshift, are they shapeshifting into what is now us? Bearing in mind we are in their likeness. Now, if we're in their likeness and they created us, then are we shapeshifters? No. So that means we're not in their likeness. We're in one of their likenesses. I don't remember reading that in the Bible. We're one of their likenesses. So sorry, Nin. What you? This is going to be rude because I know you just started following me. This is going to come across rude. I'm just going to let you know. I'm just going to have to pull the band-aid off. So I've been doing this a long, long time. I am the foremost expert. I debunk other people. This is why the moderators and the other people are asking you these questions about evidence, because we kind of go by evidence. If we don't have it, we say things like "I believe," which you've probably heard me say now. If I don't have the evidence, I'll say "I believe." But if I do have the evidence, I'll point to where the evidence is. And I've solved things on the Anunnaki that no one's even thought possible. So for someone to say that the Anunnaki are reincarnate here as shapeshifters, first you'd need to know that they were something different prior to that, because otherwise, if they were already shapeshifters and they reincarnate into shapeshifters, then you wouldn't say you would just say that they reincarnated. You wouldn't say that they reincarnated into something, which in this case is a shapeshifter. So you would need to know what it was that they was prior to them dying to reincarnate into a shapeshifter. Because if it was another shapeshifter, then you can't just say that they reincarnated from shapeshifter to shapeshifter, because then you might as well just say they just reincarnated. And the other, can I be frank? Can I really be? I know you said you got proof, but let's be honest, you haven't. Sorry, don't hate me. Please don't make me watch whatever it is, because I will end up pointing out where it's wrong. You'll probably hate me now. You're going, we know what's going to happen. Everyone that's listens to me for the last 4 or 5 years on TikTok, I've been doing this for over 50 years. Everyone knows what will happen if you showed me your video. I'll go, right, unfortunately that's incorrect because, and then I'll point to evidence, and then you'll go, oh, unfollow, don't like this guy. That's what happens. I'm just cutting to the chase. Sorry. D-Boy's right. I asked because it seems that the ancients thought sun was consciousness. No, I see where you're saying that. No. Well, certainly in Egypt, the sun was another part of the person. So Amun was part of a person. Aten is a part of a person. So I see what you're saying, but I don't think they saw it like that. I think mainstream think that they saw it like that, but I don't think they did. That's just my opinion. But I see where you say that. That's a fair point. Tucker's wrote Lilith loved the wood. I don't know whether she had much choice back then. I mean, they were the first Homo sapiens. So could you imagine not knowing what to do, and then not even a clue what to do, probably. So, but they figured it out, I guess. And in Sevens wrote to Kerry, it was Kit who died in the planet with 12 stars constellation. I have some info as well. It was Kit, K-I-T, who died in that planet. Obviously, I've missed something. I'm just scrolling back trying to find... No, I've not missed anything. It was Kit who died in that planet with 12-star constellation. I have some info as well. I'd love to know what you're referring to then, Nin. Yeah, Kerry's wrote to Nin, who the hell is Kit? Yeah, that's why I was being polite by saying I'd like to know more. Nin has wrote to Kerry, they succeeded to engineering DNA to become superhuman and shapeshifters. They succeeded engineering DNA to become superhuman and shapeshifters. So Nin, sorry, the logic there doesn't quite fit. So the Anunnaki are smarter than us. They're taller than us. By quite a stretch in terms of their brains, in terms of intelligence, because we still can't even figure. We can't even believe that they built the pyramids. We can't even believe that. And so, are you saying that they decided that instead of upgrading their own race, that they decided to make a superhuman, a human, which is a Homo sapien, or someone indigenous to Earth? They've decided, hey, let's look at humans and make them superhuman, and then we can make them shapeshifters. Because if you're saying that they made themselves human from Anunnaki or Dingir, which was their original name, race name, so if you're saying that they decided to make themselves human from being a Dingir, that would be sacrilege. That they wouldn't do that. That is, I can guarantee you, there is no way. I mean, that's the whole reason why bloody Adam and Eve were told to eat the fruit, so that the lineage of Enki would have ended there and then with him killing them or the fruit killing them. So I'm really confused on this, and then I probably. Okay, moving on. D-Boys wrote, if ready, people fought on behalf of Anunnaki, why not give better tools and copper helmets, etc.? You mean in terms of them fighting? It's a very good question. In terms of them fighting each other, like, what's his name? Oh, bloody hell. Lucifer's dad. I can't even remember his name now. My brain's gone. What's his name? Something the Great. I can't remember his name. Yeah. So I guess the logic would be do not give them tools that they could end up attacking themselves with. I mean, it's not. It's like, would you give a chimpanzee a gun if they, if you was watching them fight other chimpanzees? Would you give them a gun and think, one day they might come back and shoot us? I wouldn't. So I guess from that logical point of view, give them sticks and stones, but do not give them, any kind of technology that can come back and bite them in the bum. In fact, Marduk did actually give technology that ended up becoming, so he gave them the Ark of the Covenant, which they used. So that was a no-no, but that was around the time that Marduk was trying to take control of being the Most High, where he, long story, but yes. So that's the only time that I've looked into whether or not humans had any kind of technologies that they shouldn't have. Sargon the Great, that was his name. Sorry, there's a couple of Sargon the Second and Sargon the Great. They went off and fought, but they did it with normal horses, chariots, as you say, spears, etc. I wouldn't let if it was the Anunnaki, I certainly wouldn't let them have any kind of more technology than that. Nicole's wrote, was it the Anunnaki that mapped out the constellations and passed the info to humans, i.e. the Mayans? Yes, absolutely. So that's not to say that there wasn't pockets of humans that looked up that had nothing to do with the Anunnaki. In other words, it wasn't taught by the Anunnaki, even though they were all from the Anunnaki, but that might have moved away and didn't ever get taught. We can kind of prove that it was the Anunnaki. First of all, they just look at the Oxford University translations where they talk about constellations, and second, we've got the Dendera. I think it was, I can't remember the name of the temple. It's in Egypt. Hathor's temple, was it? I can't remember. And it's called the Dendera constellation, and it's right up high inside the building, right on a ceiling. Now, if you're smart and you want people to know the constellations, you do it outside on the ground so that people can look up and go, hang on, let me just, and look back down and look back up and go, yeah, that's okay, I get it now. You don't put it up inside of the building, so you have to memorize it, right? Because you've got to remember that everything was done on clay and stuff, depending on which time period. Eventually they used bananas and banana leaves and papyrus and whatnot, but so you'd have to look up on the ceiling and go, right, okay, that star's there, photographic memory, run downstairs, look at the night sky and go, crap, I forgot where that star was. So you can sort of tell that it was not done, that was certainly not done for normal humans, because we're that thick we would forget what we're looking at. It was done for someone that's got more of an intelligent brain and put that there. So yes, and I mean, you got the Anthika mechanism as well, which by all accounts is a system for the stars and for our planets, etc. Mechanism that shouldn't have been around at that point in time. There's no way it should have been around. That's way too advanced. And it was wound up, it was a wind up thing, so you would wind it up and the planets would move and stuff, so you would know what constellation. And again, let's be honest, I wouldn't care what constellation. If we never had the Anunnaki, who would have cared what constellation meant at all? Seasons, yes, where the sun is, years and stuff like that. Where other planets, maybe the moon, maybe Jupiter and Mars, maybe Venus, obviously we can see with the naked eye. But constellations, that don't affect us in any shape or form that would be warranted back then for someone to go, oh, look, there's the Big Dipper. Let's, now what? I don't know. It's pretty cool though, isn't it? But we must write that down. We must paint it on ceilings. We must create mechanisms for it and everything else. No, that's clearly done by someone that knew what those constellations represented to them, not to us. So yes, I would say the Anunnaki was the ones that mapped the constellation. I mean, they were the ones that gave us the Stonehenge, which was in the Book of Enoch, where it tells you they called them gates, where the first gate the sun would strike through, hit the second gate, which is the one behind it, and so on and so on. So they actually told us that they built the calendars, they built henges. In fact, even again, the Book of Enoch talks about him going to see other henges. So, which was, he was flown around. So again, Anunnaki doing that. So yes, absolutely Anunnaki. Junas wrote to Nin7, I can't access your profile. Nin7's wrote to Kerry, read my comment before. For Shapeshifter, you can check it in my profile. I so wish I had a second phone here. Where's my second phone? I don't have it here. I'm sure Kerry will check. Nin7's wrote to... right, Nin7's wrote to Juna, you have to follow first. Okay, let's run down. Juna's wrote, I still can't access it. And then History and Coins wrote to Nin7, you're fishing for followers. Scrolling down. People chatting to Nin7. Scrolling down, reading the messages between them. Avatars wrote, I have the same Thank you, Tokita. I can't pronounce it. I'm terrible at pronunciations, but thank you, Tiki Toka. I have the same convo with my Gen Z. He won't even look at any of it. Funny, isn't it? What the AI? Yeah, they. It kind of reminds me of Greta Thunberg. Where they're that age and that. In fairness, in 100% fairness, a friend of mine, years and years ago when we was young. I've been researching this since I was 5 or 6, probably 6. We chatted, I can't remember what age we was, but we was chatting about Nostradamus. Very young though, probably 8 or 9. And he was petrified. He'd read something or heard something about Nostradamus, and he was petrified that the world was going to end. And we're going to have another war and all that kind of stuff, World War III. Thank you, Win7. And in 7, he was petrified. So I can kind of see, that was his thing back then, and now obviously, the Greta Thunberg with the climate change and all that kind of stuff. So I can kind of see each generation probably had their own fears about something. So I can't knock people too much, but yeah. Jonas wrote, what are the most famous works you have been a director in? I unfortunately, bless you. Unfortunately, I can't give out the stuff that I've done because then people will know who I am, and then the whole pack of cards comes down. I shared a video just the other day actually with someone that I'm in. It was a making of something. I can't say what it is. Where I was in Pinewood Studios and whatnot, and so they actually then said to me, wow, okay, you are telling the truth, you are who you say you are, and you do know these people, or did know these people and stuff like that. So but I can't, as much as I'd love to just blurt out all the movies and stuff, I can't, because all it takes is, I'm telling people that there's no God. The amount of non-love I get is quite amazing. So as much as I'm egotistical and want to be big-headed and say, hey, look what I've done, the best I can do is say, look at the Anunnaki movie and judge me on that, because I can't give out the other bits. I'm so sorry, but you'll see the Anunnaki. You see clearly, hopefully clearly, that I have skills. Thank you, Tiki Toka, again. Tika Toki. I'm hurting myself now, but thank you. You're doing it deliberately because I'm making you sound Tiki Toka. Thank you. Scrolling down. Nin 7 struggling with the people asking for evidence of stuff. Ideally, I would love to sort of just cut to the chase and chat to you, but there's still messages below, and I know the moderators are still talking to you, even though I'm behind. If you don't have evidence public, then Jay has wrote, I have a tricky question. Do you think the Anunnaki partook of the weed? They drank beer. We know they drank beer. They tell us they drank beer. In fact, we learnt how to make beer from them, which is funny because there was that video the other day, wasn't there, that some bloke was talking to a panel of women, and he tried, thank you, Jay, and he tried to belittle her by going, oh, we all know that beer was invented by monks. And I was like, whoa, no. So then I point out the tablet that predates any monks whatsoever, just in date alone of the age of the tablet, let alone the content of the tablet, where Enki and Nimna are drinking beer before they even create us. They're chatting about what they can do on how they can create us, make us good or bad or whatever. So before we even were here, before Homo sapiens were here. So, sorry, I enjoy knocking that numpty down. Thought he knew it all. Do you think the Anunnaki took in something else? I'll be honest, I've never looked for it. I mean, if I search for the translation of the word smoke or something else, I might come across it. Because obviously Native Americans took sort of stuff people do around the world. I've never read anything that, because if I did, I would have went, wow, okay, that's different. So I've never read it, but that's not to say that I've not looked for. I mean, there's millions of tablets, and I haven't read every single one of them. So yes, I would like to think they didn't, for the fact that when they had their recreational time, they were drinking beer, and they told us they drank beer. So I would like to think that the beer was the only thing that was on the menu. But it's a good question. Go number 2 in the class, right? Nin 7 wrote back to Kerry, and God have no evidence for claiming to create the universe. Well, the funny thing is, sorry, don't hate me, Nin. It's just because I'm very, very analytically logical. The Bible doesn't actually say universe. It says the beginning. And so what that's actually referring to is the beginning of the solar system, which I can show with evidence, not the beginning of the universe. Sorry, I'm just helping you out there, only because you put a laughing face back to Kerry. In other words, Kerry, you're wrong by putting the laughing face that you've done, but I'm just pointing out that you're wrong because it doesn't actually say universe. Sorry, don't hate me. You're probably going to hate me now. This is how I work. This is just... And Kerry's unfortunately the same. I say unfortunately because she's the one that's quizzing you at the moment. History and Coins wrote, we don't say he did. No, we don't talk about that God because he is the Anunnaki, or they are the Anunnaki. Scrolling down, people chatting to Nin 7 still. I'm not going to read too many of that, so otherwise I get bogged down. Nin 7 wrote, shush, don't ask me, ask the religious people. And then Nin 7, listen, let me listen to him. I'm not religious at all, so I don't know whether you think I am, but no, it's I've proven without, no one can disprove it, and trust me, no one. Even Museum of Tarot, who's a religious person, Dan McLaren, no one. West Huff, no one can disprove my evidence. So the Anunnaki, which their race name was Dingir, which translates in our language to gods, were the gods in the Bible. So I don't subscribe to an almighty creator because I've gone with the evidence. Cotswold wrote, the chat on Jordan Codices, Metal Books. Oh, that was it. Thank you. Yeah, I need to remember that. Seemed to stop suddenly. Sounded like they were written at time of Jesus. Thank you, Tikatoka. Thank you. Wrote at the time of Jesus, as people think fake makes me wonder. Can you send me a message in the background? I'll have a listen to the audio again, just in case I didn't render it all fully. There is a possibility that I might not click the end part. You got an in and out, because I have to get rid of the car sound and stuff like that. So please let me know, and I might still have the original. Thank you for that. Nicole's wrote, were any Anunnaki born here, and if so, did they bring literature from Nibiru to teach the young? Yes. Inanna was born here. I think possibly Dumuzi was born here. Utu was born here. So yes, they definitely brought and had young children here. Ninurta was just a bit older. There's a tablet where he talks about his life on his own planet. I have read it out, and what they've done is they've named some of the locations here the same as what's on their home planet, which is interesting. I guess when you look at Tiamat being the name that they gave the first female, then you can see that they liked reusing the names. But yes, so that's the reason why we got Lagash Kai, Nibraki, because you've got to remember they used determinatives, so at the end of the word was the part, what's the main part, so earth, basically, key. So Lagash Ki, Nibraki is their equivalents of their things on earth. So did they bring literature from Nibiru to teach the young? They did. There's no sort of that I'm aware of. There's no tablets talking about Inanna and Utu and that when they were younger. That's not to say there is. It's just I've never read them. I can't imagine them. Without saying that this is not patronising, I can't imagine them writing down saying that I taught my daughter to walk this morning, and having that put out in tablets and getting translated and everything else into different languages back then. So that's what they used to do. They had libraries and stuff. So I can't imagine they would have bothered writing that down. You could say, well, hang on a minute, there are tablets where humans were getting lard for the baths for the Anunnaki and counting how much lard, but that was the humans that were doing that, not the Anunnaki themselves. So I can't imagine, it's a good question, but I can't imagine them going into something mundane like that. But then you could argue, well, hang on a minute, they talked about toothache, so there probably is tablets then if they're talking about, they do talk about mundane things. So maybe there is tablets, but I just never read any. Sud, obviously we know the story of Sud. She was young, but that's because of Enlil. So, but I would imagine they would have brought stuff down for them to learn. If we believe the Moorhen translations, when Adam out of Adam and Eve went up to Nibiru, the other Anunnaki that was with him took up a tablet that was translated as a tablet to King Anu, who entered some sort of password to read it. So it seems to be some device as opposed to clay tablet. So in which case, if they had tablets here on Earth, I would imagine they would have had educational things. And you got to remember that Adam was one of the first magi. What are they called? I'm trying to remember. Well, technically it's magi, but there was another name for them. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. Calypso or something. He was one of the first to start teaching the other humans. So it showed that he had longer life, because there's no point in teaching someone that's the same age as you. But yeah, so he had longer life, and he was one of the first of the 7 I can't remember how you pronounce it. Teachers. Noah was one of the other ones, and again, he was a demigod, which was the son of Enki. So they had obviously aids here for us to, because if you take it that Adam was the first Homo sapien, and then as children came along, which were not demigods, they were growing quicker than he was. So there must have been material here for him to teach those other children, such as Cain and Abel, and so on. After that, for nearly 1,000 years, so he must have had material to teach us, or our humans. So yes, I would say they had that material here. Thank you. Good question. Go number 2 in the class for that. Ninjas wrote, as Anunnaki used to mine gold as to conduct their atmosphere. That's right. Yes, there's no direct translation of that, believe it or not. I've never read a direct translation. But if we put everything together, I have looked at every mention. In fact, in a chapter in my book, it's called Goldfingers, and I look at all the other talk about ancient gold and the mining and all that kind of stuff. So clearly they needed it for something. And if we believe the Moorhen translations again, and I found about 70 to 80% of stuff that they've wrote about in other tablets, so they've not lied. So yes, I do believe that it was for their atmosphere. Scrolling down, people chatting to Nin. Nin Sevens wrote, Anunnaki made lots of deities using DNA, including human. Now they can engineer DNA to become a shapeshifter. Sorry, I'm going to have to unpack this one. Anunnaki made lots of deities. So a deity is either a planet or a dingir, which is them, Anunnaki. Anunnaki is just a name for the elder Anunnakis that came here. There's 600 older Anunnakis and 300 Ajiji, which were the younger gods. So when you say Anunnaki made lots of deities, technically they wouldn't have made deities at all. They wouldn't have done that. So I'd have to quiz you on the evidence for that, which you won't have. Sorry, I don't mean to sound rude, but you won't. And then you wrote, including humans. So you're saying that they made... I'm guessing you're saying that they made deities, which obviously was themselves, so they wouldn't have done that. I mean, unless you're on about they bred with each other, yes, they had kids. And then you said they included humans. Yes, they did create... Well, you have to be careful on the word humans. That's why I always say Homo sapiens, because humans is an umbrella term for hominids. And so Homo erectus, Juliensis, Florensis, etc. are all in that human category. And apes are not, they're primates, but the hominids are, and so is Homo sapien, the Homo sapiens sapiens. So when you say including human, I'm not nitpicking, I'm just saying, because if I got it wrong, someone would tear me to pieces. And then you wrote, now they can engineer DNA to become shapeshifter. I mean, it's possible that the Anunnaki may have the technology to, taking it from, for example, the octopus, or cuttlefish, or whatever you call it, where they have a chameleon even, where they have the ability to camouflage or change slightly their shapes. Is it possible that the Anunnaki has done that? Not necessarily with humans, but I mean, they did certainly tinker with humans. We know they tinkered. We had the the Minotaur and the Centaur and so on, which were originally over in Sumeria. That's where the oldest known depictions of them come from, not from Greece. So way before. So Greece is just a retelling of the older stories, which most of the stories from Greece is telling older stories, except for the younger demigods. But any of the older stories from the gods were older, like when they split the territories up, etc. In the Greece story, that was actually talking about the Anunnakis after the Great Flood, so that was way before Greece was even around. So What benefit would the Anunnaki have creating a shapeshifter? Same reason, I guess you could. Devil's argument would be same reason why they created the griffin and the, um, harpy and all those other what are not mythological creatures, the hybrids. Would the Anunnaki create? They could possibly have done that, but they wouldn't have done deities. Bella's wrote hi, and then put laughing faces. Hi Bella, nice of you to join. Nicole's wrote, considering that Nibiru was having issues, I wonder if Anunnaki ever considered rehoming to Earth. Yeah, it's a brilliant question. Go number one in class. I'm surprised no one's ever asked that. You'd think, wouldn't you? I know my mind boggles on this because if their planet's dying, I've said this before, if our planet's dying, or we're in a war, we send everyone. Even the women. Eventually we would have probably sent children to war to fight for us. So they only send 900 Anunnaki or 900 Dingir in total. I don't get that. Their planet's dying. Their whole planet, every single person is going to end up dying. They said 900. 900. And they go backwards and forwards, so it's not like it's a one-way trip. 900. They had to take the gold back. 900. I mean, there was possibly around, at one point, probably around 2,000, but that's still minuscule unless 900 was doing it. But obviously they didn't do it very well at the beginning because many Shahs passed, which was thousands and thousands of years, and they weren't getting enough gold from the Persian Gulf, which is where they was trying to get it from originally. So the question is, how many people are on their planet if they can only spare 900, or is it only 900 that actually volunteered to come here? Are the rest chickens? I don't know. But you're right. It's they aged quicker here. We know they aged quicker here, but they obviously bred fine here. They had children here. They could breathe as well, and they could eat our food. So why not take another planet? It doesn't. We would. My God, if Nibiru didn't have Anunnaki on it or Dingir, we would take it. We would take it and ruin the crap out of it. We would, because that's what we're like. But why didn't they come here and say, okay, let's just actually set up properly base instead of all these bits and pieces and different locations? They had no infrastructure really. I mean, you got things eventually like aqueducts and aquifers and stuff like that they ended up doing. But if it was me, I would have sent down a huge amount of people, set up infrastructure, and said, right, at least this is your holiday home. If you want to go somewhere for thank you, Jane. If you want to go somewhere for a break, someone's just sent me a message saying I've just tried to join your live, however, and I think they've been booted off. It just came up. I can read messages. Are you back? I think the same person, Annie. Hopefully you're back for good now, Annie, if you can hear me. Scrolling down, Bella's wrote, "It's okay, you are just doing your job," and that's when I was like trying to be polite about stuff. Thank you, Bella. Bella's wrote, "You're sorry." I am. I don't like. Yeah, I'm sorry. Bella's wrote, "You're the expert." Thank you very much. But I don't want to come across like that. I just want to sort of educate people that sometimes what they say, think before saying it. I don't. Yeah. Nin Series wrote, "No worries." Thank you, Nin. Hopefully you're all good. Bella's wrote, "Has anyone? He has debunked everyone." Sorry, Bella wrote, "He has debunked everyone." I mean, there's probably a few people that haven't bothered debunking. I mean, I have seen videos where I'm like, "Oh, I'll have you," where some numpty says something, and then like I have to shoot for work or whatever, and I just think, "Oh, I can't be bothered." So yeah, I could do it all day long, pointing out where people are wrong, but I'm not. I'm a nice guy. Nin Sevens wrote, "Everybody are a free soul." Thank you, Nin. History and Coins wrote, "Kit is the car from Knight Rider." Technically, he spelled it with one T, and Kit from Knight Rider had two. It was Knight Industries 2000. It was the TT was the 2000. Again, not knocking you. Just I like to be sad, isn't it? It sounds like I'm a really boring person because it sounds like I'd like to be correct all the time. I'm not. I'm just pointing that out. Sorry, don't hate me. Bella's wrote, there is no proof at all of any of that. I'm guessing that's back to Nin 7. Yeah, I've never come across any of what Nin 7 said. Scrolling down, Bella's wrote, sounds more like Manchurian Candidate. I can't remember what I was talking about for that, but yes. Do you know what? You won't believe this. I don't think I've ever seen the film. I think there is a film on that, isn't there? I think it's also, wasn't it? The Men That Stare at Goats is also based off of that, if I'm not mistaken, but I might be mistaken. I've never watched that either. The things, it's funny, isn't it? It's because you're probably wondering, why the hell doesn't he watch these things? Because I get frustrated when I watch stuff that might not be 100% correct that from my research, and so I avoid it because I don't want to go there going, right, I'm going to make a TikTok video on this bit here because they cocked it up. I don't like doing that. That's why I don't watch other people's videos really, unless they unfortunately come along and I see them as I'm scrolling. Jay has wrote, put laughing faces, Lucifer's dad. Yes, I was trying to remember his name. I'm spoiling it now for everyone. It was Sargon the Great. Yeah. Feel free to watch my amazing documentary on who Lucifer was, called Lucifer Solved. The only person to work it out ever. And everything matches. It's not just like, he was around at the time or something like that. No, he destroyed nations. He got no tomb for it. The list just goes on and on. Couldn't believe I figured out who Lucifer was. Amazing. But I have, and D-Boys wrote, stars are born and die also. What about water? Thoughts, it seems to remember sound, etc. It's an interesting point. I mean, there is some suggestions, isn't there, that water can hold a memory. In fact, there was something I was watching today. I'm trying to remember what it was. Supposedly seawater has the same consistency of plasma and something else that the human blood has. And apparently in World War II, when they ran out of blood to give transfusions to people, they started using seawater. Now, if we take that as real, then that's very interesting because obviously plasma has many properties that we still don't even understand to this day. And then if we take that even further and we look at some of my amazing videos where I look into us having an innate memory. So, for example, I've said this many a time, but like, we're not born as a blank slate. We are not. So a baby turtle that crawls out of the sand goes towards the sun. A baby horse doesn't. So we have inside us generic DNA that tells us, compared to another animal, what to do at certain points in time. So that isn't just because of my dad's and my mum's egg. That is something that is definitely passed down as a memory. Again, look at a cat. You think, oh, not cute. Look at a spider and you're like, yeah, not so cute. Why have we got that? If we're all blank slates, I know there's some people that will like a spider and stuff, but you know what I'm saying. Why do we find the opposite person attractive? Generally, normally in the olden days, the opposite of sex. Why do we find someone attractive? There's something inside us that is passed down, and if you go one further from that, octopuses, a certain octopus that when it dies, when it gives birth, the mother dies, and the baby has already got the knowledge on how to survive. And now octopuses have a very unique system of brains and everything else. But the point is, that got passed down. So yes, there may be something in the water, as they say. History and Cross. I'm going back to bed in a moment, finishing coffee. No worries at all. Thank you, History and Cross. Deep Boys wrote, is space a form of water in Anunnaki ways or ideals? So there is water in space. There is. In fact, NASA, 4 months ago, 5 months ago, said that they found in deep space a humongous amount of water that's just together, that's more water than the oceans on Earth. I think they didn't. I think they said even bigger than Earth itself. So it basically it's like clumped together. So normally, if you look at NASA and you ask them if there's water, they'll say there's water vapor in space, which means it's not clumped together. But obviously, for certain conditions, water does seem to clump together. I mean, in space, if you put 2 drops of water together, even though there's no atmosphere or no gravity, it still will, if they hit together, they'll stick together, and it forms a little bigger droplet and so on. They don't just repel each other. So water in space will end up becoming, if they all found each other, bashed into each other, will become a big lake or ocean in space. And again, the Bible tells us that as well. It says the waters mingled, which is what it's referring to, and the Anum release says the same thing, that the waters mingled. So, and that's what created Tiamat. So that's the start of planets. So yes, the answer to your question is space a form of water? It has water in it, but obviously it's not. Space isn't water itself. And I don't, from everything that I've tried to research on space isn't a complete vacuum. I know people say, oh, it's a vacuum, and that's the reason why. No, the reason why there's no gravity is because you're not near a density. If we got off Earth and went into space, the density of Earth, which is what gives us time-space, is gone, because the further away you go from the density, the less gravity you have, because there's no gravity, there's no density. So I don't think space is a vacuum at all. Otherwise, you wouldn't, rockets, when they push from one thing, it would just stay there. But it doesn't. So there's been experiments where a fly inside of a proper vacuum won't be able to fly, but it would be able to fly in space, which is weird. Which means it's not 100% vacuum. History goes right. I laugh out loud. I'm looking at the stars right now. This is more than I can do. If I looked up, it would just be dark and grey and horrible. Nin Sevens wrote, this is going to be the last life cycle from the most of souls, then move on to 7 constellations. So I don't know if you're interested, but I have done a documentary called Everything You Need to Know About Spirits, which does seem to be the orbs that join with the pineal glands. Now, from what I believe, their job is to learn and grow, and so we get the larger ones outside with basketball size outside. Tennis ball seems to be the ones that's smaller that join with the people, and they're always inside, or seem to be mostly inside. So I can't imagine when you say this is going to be the last life cycle, because you've got to remember, when you don't have mass, which is what I was just talking about, you can go forwards and backwards in time. So when you say this will be the last cycle for them, technically they could have already done this 1,000 times and will do it 1,000 times, because there's no time for them, if that makes sense. In other words, I could have had a different orb inside me 1 billion times for all I know. Because they can go backwards and forwards in time. We can prove that by when a dead person tells you, through a clairvoyant or whatever, something that they shouldn't have known. Your family members shouldn't have known that, but they do. That means, as connected with the orb, they can go forwards and backwards in time. So, to say that this will be the last cycle is a really strange thing to say, simply because on the other side there is no time. So they wouldn't have an end. But I'd be interested to know where you got that information from. Junas wrote, did humans ever kill Anunnaki? Not that I'm aware. It's an interesting question. Not that I'm aware of. They did cut. They did. Um, so sometimes the Anunnaki, when they bred with humans, had um, children with gigantism. So we ended up with people that was 8 foot plus. So Goliath was about 8 foot apparently. So we had giants back then, and when humans didn't like these giants because these giants were eating. I mean, some of them were probably a lot bigger than you know, even the Book of Giants. So if your parent, for example, an Anunnaki is 20 foot tall and you're 5 foot tall, and you've got gigantism, and you're described as a giant, the chances are you're probably bigger than your parent if you're going to be classed as a giant. And so you're probably looking at 20 foot, 30 foot. There are some bones that have been found that suggest, 36-foot finger bone in Africa. So if we look at that, we can then say, okay, did any humans fight giants? Again, Book of the Giants, but and there's other footprints and all sorts of things like that. But we can say that the word, supposedly, the words cut them down to size was where we would try and chop their legs off, so to bring them down because they were too tall, too big. But killing Anunnaki, I've never read anything like that at all. It's normally the other way around. The Anunnaki will kill us a lot, a lot. But not the other way around. I've never read that. But it's a good question. Thank you. Go number one in the class. Nicole's wrote, do you think Anunnaki used the constellations to navigate, or would they have devices to guide them? So that if we look at it from a logical point of view, we can say that our constellation will probably be different to their constellation because, as you know, our planet moves around the sun and the sun spins and so on. And our solar system even spins. So our constellations would probably be different looking to the constellations on a planet that goes all the way out to Pluto and then all the way back between Jupiter and Mars. So they're probably, even though they're the same stars, it's the the positions of them would look slightly different. So why would they need them to navigate? Well, Alula found his way here first without looking at our star system. Unless for some miraculous reason they are as identical to the same star system, but why would they have gave us 12 zodiac? See, because the whole point was that we had 13 months originally and then knocked it down to 12. So the constellations are definitely unique to Earth, not to their planet. Otherwise they would have just went, well, there's 13, tough. But they made it so it worked for Earth. So Alula came here without the need for Earth's constellations. The first 50 Anunnaki that turned up, including Enki, didn't need our constellations, and so they obviously managed to get back to drop off the. It wasn't till, if we believe the Moorhen translations, it wasn't till Enki and Marduk went to the moon and stayed there for, well, it was one day for them, but 30 days for us. And they watched the moon cycle, and that's when they got Enki decided to, work out how our how our little part of our little solar system works. So to answer your question, I believe they would have had devices. Now we can go a little step further than that. We can go to the Tablets of Destiny, which Anzu stole and said that he can make the lights, the stars in the sky disappear because he's got this Tablet of Destiny. Now, is that something to do with the guidance system? But again, why would they only have one? That would be the most stupid thing to do, is only have one guidance system to get past the hammer bracelet. And again, Alula did it without that, and so did the first 50 Anunnaki do it without the Tablets of Destiny. Now, the Enuma Elish talks about Tiamat given the tablets of destiny to a different, obviously they're not real tablets, but given the tablets of destiny to Kingu, which became our moon. So it certainly seems that the tablets of destiny has something to do with the constellations or the workings of our solar system. But why only have one? That's the most stupidest thing. And panic when it gets stolen. So I don't think it's for our. There's something probably more that we don't know. Like the other day there was like 6 planets all aligned. Maybe it's something else bigger that we don't actually understand what it means when constellations are around. But maybe they do. That was a really good question. Go number 1 in the class for that. Bella's wrote 2142. I'm not sure what that's for, Bella. If that's your PIN number, just send me your card. Tickers has wrote, it's okay, I made it a tongue twister, I'm guessing you're going to say. Yes, you certainly have. Yeah, and then you wrote twister, which is what I thought you was going to say. Scrolling down, D-Boys wrote, in Egypt, winter soul, the sun seems sit still for 3 days, then comes back. Bring life, seems same for Jesus. I haven't looked into that. Someone asked me that the other day on one of the lives about the sun staying where it was. They did have luminaries in the sky. Marduk, he moved one of the luminaries. We've got tablets telling us. So when the Anunnaki came here for the first 7 days, one of the things they did on the first or second day was put a luminary in the sky. And of course, the Bible says it was let there be light, and there was, which they did, because then they can work during the night, because they don't sleep like we do for Earth time. So I haven't looked into that. So it's more than likely a luminary in the sky than the sun just suddenly staying at the same place. I would have thought, or or a spaceship that they could see up in the sky or something like that. I can't imagine the sun and Earth suddenly staying at the same place. Sorry, I'm just going to see if I've got a drink. Sorry about that. Dan has wrote, wow, pal, love your work. Much love, pal. Oh, thank you very much, Dan. Thank you. Bless you. I don't know. I don't remember seeing the name before, but thank you very much. Thank you. Scrolling down, TikTok has wrote, Tika to Kiti. Yeah, that's. I'm lucky to pronounce my own name. Thank you though for trying. History and Coins has wrote, by God. Thank you for joining in History and Coins. Bella's wrote, are you on YouTube as well right now? I seem to be missing some comments. No, I'm just sitting here on my phone, only on TikTok. So I apologise if I've missed any questions. I have skipped over ones where people chat to each other, because otherwise I get bogged down on people's comments. Dana's wrote, I have heard they are still here underground in Israel. What, the Anunnaki? No, ignore that. There's no way they would be underground in Israel. No way. So bearing in mind, the Anunnaki created us. So for them to hide like that underground, when they built palaces, and we've got palaces, we found them. We've got lidar of Enki's temple, or building, should I say? We've got we found Ninurta's palace. We found Enlil's palace. We found underneath the what is it called? The Castle Mount, the Mount in Israel. There was another building and so on. No, they wouldn't be underground. They so wouldn't be underground. Could you imagine us creating a species and then us hiding? If anywhere, they would be in Antarctica, because there's a chunk of Antarctica that doesn't have ice on it, the size of America, which is what split off, broke into the ocean 12,000 years ago, 10,000, 12, around that sort of time, and created a great flood, the tsunami. And Admiral Byrd has even said that there's a chunk of ice basically missing from Antarctica, and Oxford University have also said what caused the Great Flood was a chunk of ice float coming off of Antarctica, and of course we're not allowed in Antarctica. So if they're gonna be anywhere, it would be Antarctica. They wouldn't be hiding underground. I mean, there's probably, plus their children. So you're looking at probably, if a rough estimate, about 5,000 Anunnaki and their demigod children, which can live, possibly anywhere up to, depending whether or not they're given extra life by drinking the elixir, or eating the elixir plant, or whatever you do with the elixir plant. So yeah, they wouldn't be under Israel. Antarctica's my best bet, and it makes sense. Then Seven has wrote, "I don't hate." Cool. Hate is a devil caretaker. Just to let you know, technically there was no. I hear what you're saying. It's funny, but technically there was no devil. It was that came along way later. The original word for demon was a meteorite as well, if you're interested, but then over time they used it to mean something evil. Bella's wrote, "Wise one is definitely not religious." That's me. Yes, not religious. Thank you for that. Bella's wrote 205 3 times. Oh, that was what you said when you gave me that pin number that I've written down now, but it turns out it's not a pin number, it was a time. 8:53. Okay, so I'm slightly behind, but there's only 43 messages, and some of these are probably people chatting to each other. Thank you, Bella, for the time check. I'll need to remember that now. Deep Boys wrote, asked last question about Jesus, because it seems there were the idea of resurrection came from. So my opinion on the whole resurrection thing is Jesus had an elongated skull. I'm 99% sure of that. He was a hybrid. He had an elongated skull. He was created by Marduk using a human woman and possibly Anunnaki DNA and one of the other types of aliens that's got the elongated skulls, such as the Nazca mummies or the Mexican mummies, or another type such as Orion Greys, Zeta Greys. They have elongated skulls. So Jesus was intelligent, was born or created to be a king. That is pretty much guaranteed. I can show you enough evidence to say that that's what he was for, and he backed out and didn't want to do it. So he was created. He had an elongated skull, and obviously he didn't do what the job was. He was supposed to take the throne from Herod, but he didn't. And so Marduk lost interest in him. And so that's why Jesus shouts out, "Why have you forsaken me?" when he sees a UFO in the sky, and then dies. Now, I think, this is my gut feeling is that because he was another one of his experiments with an elongated skull, along with some of the others, Akhenaten, Nefertiti, and so on, I think that they took him. Either the aliens took him, modern aliens, Zetas, whatever, because obviously they'd probably be interested in the genetics of a hybrid for sure. So the chances are he was either taken by them or by Marduk. My gut feeling is modern aliens that took him, because if you look at the hybridization program, etc., it makes sense that they would take someone that was created by the Anunnaki with human and mixed with another alien type. That's right up their street. And so they would have probably beamed him out. Now, I'm not saying that the Shroud of Turin's his thing, because when you've got something that's wrapped around something, when you unwrap it, it becomes wider and you can see the ears and stuff. You don't just see the front. So that was, watch my video on the Turin to see what that was. It wasn't wrapped around Jesus. But the point is, they could have beamed him out. That's my opinion on what happened to Jesus. The other part about him being created, there's enough evidence there. Annie wrote, no sound. I don't know if anyone else can hear. Annie's wrote no sound again. Bella's wrote, I have sound. So maybe it's your phone, Annie. Obviously, if you can't hear me, you won't hear me saying turn the sound volume up. But wasn't I right about 30 people, or was I right about 30 people? I am limited, ladies and gentlemen. You go watch any of these other people that waffle on about Anunnaki, they're not limited. I'm limited, guaranteed, on 30. 15 or 30 is what the marks are, which I said right at the beginning. D-Boys wrote, thoughts have we found a Anunnaki dead? Seems we would have if we did, we'd use DNA to. Yeah, we would. So supposedly the giants that the Anunnaki had as children, the some people call them Nephilim. The actual word Nephilim actually means giant. That's all it means. Go watch my video on Nephilim. But the giants that have been, like Kandahar giant, for example, supposedly the military are using the DNA to try and create a super soldier. So there's no point in creating a smaller version of a human. You'd probably want to create a bigger version of a human that can kick, and fight. And obviously smaller ones are good for, clandestine things. But if you're going to send a troop of people in to go and beat up people, then probably 8 foot or bigger is the order of the day. But more than likely they're probably using that for the longevity of life and possibly healing processes that are direct offspring off of Anunnaki and human, such as what we call demigods, or they call demigods. They may have better healing than us, or they may have worse healing than us, because obviously their time, if they live longer, their healing may take twice as long, if not longer. So, but regarding now, there was I can't say her name. There was a person on here that is a anthropologist. I think her job was, and she goes off around the world looking at burial sites or places that they find where they've got unusual bodies. And one day she sent me a message. I've just got back from a certain place. I said to her I wouldn't say anything about who she is, etc. And I believe her. She's 100%. She knows her stuff, so she's not making it up. And she said, I've just got back, and she saw an elongated skull person with all the regalia, because obviously all the genuine elongated skulls are put in positions of high power. That's the way it was, and that's why we headbound to try and emulate those people in power. So she come across one of those, and she got told not to say anything. Of course, she follows me, so she had to tell me, but she made me say not to tell where it was, etc. And so it was a genuine elongated skull one, one that would have been, a hybrid, as opposed to just someone headbound. Now, there is the Royal Tomb of Ur, which is very fascinating because it's in the Middle East, and it was it had burial. I don't want to use the word tombs, but burial ditches, or whatever you want to call them. And inside those, they found a human female, which would have been a proper human, that was a queen, and she would have been married to or living with someone else, which was more than likely an Anunnaki. Now, her coffin or tomb, or whatever you want to call it, ditch, was the correct size for a human. Now, there was I think there was a couple of tombs or burial sites that they described the width of about 3 meters, which is really wide for someone, human. But they didn't say that the height of it. But yet they measured everything else. You got all the measurements of the room and everything else, but they never mentioned the length of this freaking. There was a couple, which makes me think these were Anunnaki. Because Anunnaki do die, and they're not going to always probably take the body back to Nibiru, because they never thought that in the future we'll be all over it like a rash and trying to create super soldiers and stuff from dead people. So yeah, I do believe we have found Anunnaki's dead bodies, but it's all been hushed. Jane is right. Okay, God, sorry I'm late. Just finished work. Well, Jane, we have spoke about you here while you wasn't here, and we're very disappointed. And I'm joking. Thank you very much, Jane, for coming. Bless you, Goddess Jane. D-Boys wrote, the war probably depopulated the planet along with the atmosphere. We send 60,000 just to sit in the desert. Yeah, that was when I was talking about the Anunnaki. Yeah, I've said that. I think that their planet is... I don't think they had that many people on their planet after their wars. And so if we believe that the translations are correct, that they had wars, even though they had a ceasefire, I think if you go by their generations, you're looking at, I think it was about 12 kings prior to. They were called the Titans, by the way. The kings on Nibiru were Titans. So next time you listen to some numpty saying, anything about a Titan, just laugh at them and say, no, only the kings on Nibiru were Titans. Alula was a Titan. King Anu was a Titan. Enki, no. Enlil, no. So anyway, I agree that I think that they don't have that many people. It just doesn't make sense, and that's probably why they left their people on the home planet. There's no other way. I mean, you're right. 60,000 to send into a desert. Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. So I don't think there's that many people. Annie's wrote, still no sound. I don't know what to do. Everyone else seems to have sound. I'm sorry, Annie. You're probably thinking I'm being bad, but you're probably not even hearing me saying that I think I'm being bad. Oh, I wish you could hear me. I'm sorry. Don't know what to say. D-Boys wrote, also it takes longer for them to grow. Yeah, I mean, on their home planet, for them it's no different from us. We don't know any different, but obviously when they're here and they see us come and go quickly, then they realise that they do live longer. But to them on their home planet, they live their life that isn't longer than ours. They supposedly it's about 120 years on their home planet that they live for. So, but to them it's 120 years of their time. But obviously ours, it's a long time for them to live. R41 has put laughing faces, so English, and then more laughing faces. Now this person doesn't follow me, so what they're doing is with the laughing faces is saying that because I'm English, therefore I'm making up crap. Let's be honest, that's what they're saying. Even though I have evidence to point to thousands of documentaries, books, no one's debunked me. So I guess this numpty, sorry, did I call you a numpty? R4113. This numpty doesn't like what I'm talking about. D-Boys had to be a small population for Supreme Leader to send sons. Well, they volunteered. From what I understand, they volunteered, which is why they were called heroes. You'll see that in the new movie, actually. Hopefully you've seen the trailers and stuff for the new movie that's coming out on Saturday, Anunnaki, The Search for Gold, one of 8 movies. Thank you, Nin7. It's very nice of you. Thank you. For everyone that don't know, I've done a feature film. I am a film director, but I've done this one in AI. First film to be released properly in AI. When I say properly, actually for people to watch. There's people that supposedly made films, but they're not out yet. So I seem to be the first one that's got it out. Not asked doing anything for it, free of charge. Just go enjoy. But yes, they were classed as heroes. They volunteered to come down the Ajiji, from what I understand. And then 7 has wrote, all become one and one become all. That's why particles contain memories from previous consciousness. I think it's the orbs that contain the previous consciousness, because when you have, see, I can sort of prove it really by people having near-death experiences. What happens is that the orb leaves the body, and then another orb joins the body when the body's comes back to life, and then they can have different memories. They can paint. So they're accessing the orb that had a previous life with it, but it's a different orb now, and so now they can talk in a different language, have a different accent, all sorts of things that they can do. Play a piano that they couldn't do before. And so if we went with your assumption that it's to do with particles being passed down, then that wouldn't happen suddenly. That would only happen if something changes. Have a look into walk-ins. You'll see that. So it's not always near death. You can also do it when you're depressed and your chakra's low, etc. And your orb that's with you just says, "I've had enough" for whatever reason, then leaves, and a different orb jumps in, and you suddenly wake up thinking, "Hang on a minute, this isn't my life. I don't remember certain things," or stuff like that. But if we went with the assumption that it was all passed down because of fluids, then the logic there of near death suddenly kick-starting, and even a walk-in where you're not near death, kick-starting something different. It does seem to be the orbs on that side, the consciousness. Nicole's wrote, do Bigfoot build intentional structures, i.e. houses or walls to shield themselves? Do they have weapons? I'm guessing so. So Connie Willis, it's a good question. Connie Willis, who is a radio host, sometimes guest host on Coast to Coast, she does expeditions to go and see Bigfoots. And one time, she's had many of mine speak. She says, as long as you don't take weapons and your intentions are good, they will talk to you. And she's had many times. One of them was where they said to her, the reason why they don't show themselves is because we're scared of them. We don't like their face. We're scared of their face, which I found very sad, because it's like, if you was in the woods and suddenly you saw like an 8-9 foot Bigfoot, you would be scared of their face. But if the Bigfoot was sitting there and having a cup of tea with you, you'd probably get over it. But obviously, because we're not used to them, we would always be scared of them. Anyway, so she said one time that they said to her they don't have weapons because weapons escalate a fight. And they do fight themselves. There's cases of people seeing two Bigfoots fighting themselves. So they do fight, but if they had weapons, it would escalate worse. So they don't do that. So that's clearly an intelligent move, because obviously, look at us. Who's got the biggest stick? And then you build a bigger stick to get rid of that other person's threat of their bigger stick. And before you know it, we've all got nuclear weapons. And so that's for weapons. Supposedly no. Intentional structures, other than glyphs, which people have seen glyphs on the floor, they believe are done by Bigfoots. There was a case of this. It was quite gruesome, actually. This person, I can't remember if he was a hunter or what, but he was out walking around and he came across this. Yes, the answer would probably be yes. Like an igloo type thing built out of. I've seen a couple of these now, actually, thinking about it. Built out of branches and leaves and stuff. And inside was apparently a guy. On this one particular case, there was a guy that was dead, killed by a Bigfoot. Can't remember what it was that made it look like he was killed by a Bigfoot, but there was I can't remember the bloody story of it properly. But it's something that no other creature would have done. It was, and anyway, this guy saw him, realised what had happened, and took his ID from this guy. I think it was a military guy that went missing. Took his ID from him and run, and then looked up who he was and notified the families, etc. And the police went there and found the body and dismantled the thing. But yeah, so there's quite a few. Even in Australia, there's they seem to build these sort of igloo type things for whatever reason. I don't know why. Maybe it's a temporary shelter for one night or something to avoid being seen. The logic is that I wouldn't build that as a permanent structure because it was out in the middle of if someone came across it, like two people obviously did, one that died and one that found the dead person. It's not a great hiding place, so it seems to be for some other reason. Maybe just for one night, but again, if they're gonna, I mean, they do hide in barns and stuff at night. So could it be that I don't know? It takes a lot of effort to build a thing that high and wide and everything else. I guess maybe they thought people wouldn't see it, or see it till later, the dead body. I don't know. And then there's other cases where they've put women's, they killed a woman. Sorry, I think I just swallowed a fly. And there's sorry, one second. Let me just have a quick drink. Oh, there we go. Brundlefly. There was a woman that was up a tree over a branch, and she was killed by Bigfoot supposedly. So yes, but no, I don't think they build intentional structures other than the ones I've just mentioned. That's all I've ever heard of. D Boys wrote thought on the occult black sun, eclipse, dead star, etc. Where does that come from? Germans believe. So I do believe that there is another dead dwarfs, another sun here in our solar system, dead dwarf, that probably died out right at the beginning before Nibiru came here. They didn't mention it, unless Mamu was the when they talk about Mamu, unless Mamu is the dead star, second star, I don't know. But I do believe it. I heard back in the 80s, and you got to remember, back then we didn't have internet, we didn't have too many numpties spreading false information like literally every person seems to do now on TikTok. And I heard back in the 80s, I've been doing this for a long time, that there's a planet in our, I didn't know the name of it, there was a planet in our solar system that had a dead dwarf star in its orbit, caught in its orbit and going around with it. And as time moved on, I realised that most star systems are binary. So technically, we probably would have had two suns here. And then you start looking into it a bit more about the density and the stories, as you say, about a black sun or a dwarf star or a dead star. It does seem to me that maybe Nibiru has caught the dead star as it went round and caught it into its orbit. Now, how big that dead star is, for all I know, it could be small. What seems to happen after a sun goes supernova, not all of them do go supernova, but supposedly. But if sometimes it becomes a white, was it called white dwarf, where it's basically just a small version of a sun that's no longer shining, so it's basically black. Don't ask me why they call it a white dwarf. So yeah, I mean, it could be small. It could be, for all I know, it could be the same size as Nibiru. It's difficult to know, but yes, I do think there was a second sun here on Earth. Kerry's wrote 9:15 for time check. Thank you, Kerry. Bless you. Edith Dad's right. Hi and bye. Early start tomorrow. No worries at all. Thank you, Edith Dad. And Edith Dad's right. Looking forward to your movie. Oh, bless. All I ask is, if you're still listening, is if you did enjoy it, share it, because I know I'm limited. You don't have 30 people guaranteed at the start of a live chat, and you're dead on the dot, unless I'm being limited. So I would love people to share the hell out of that movie if they enjoyed it. So fingers crossed. User 39 wrote, hi Archers, you love the long video on YouTube videos of the TikTok lives. Keep up the great work. Oh, thank you. If you do, I'll put this one up then. Thank you. I don't know how many people listen to them, but it's nice that people tell me thank you. I'll stick this one up. Edith Dazra, I asked in a comment how you came about that Anunnaki are 300 years ahead in tech. Yes, I did try and reply to that, didn't I? So basically, obviously, when they first come here, wasn't even here, so we had no tech whatsoever, because obviously we was not created. But as time moved on, we can see that their craft was powered propulsion, and it took time. It wasn't a very quick thing, to get to their planet. In fact, they had to wait for their planet to come around. That's why the Igigis, the translation of Igigi, in one translation, it's basically the eye in the sky, which is the Watchers. So clearly, they wouldn't have needed a way station on Mars, or Lachmu as they call it, if they could fly very quickly to their home planet, like anti-gravity craft could. So it took them time. So we know, from that, we know from the Bible the sounds. We know from other cultures that the sounds of the craft when they, was like as loud as a waterfall as it landed. We know from the Norse stories that the Frost Bridge was actually, if anyone's interested in what the Frost Bridge was, it was, and go watch my amazing documentaries on them. It was not a bridge. It was the fire coming out of the back of a rocket going up in a bow shape, which is what rockets do. They go up in a bow shape. So anyway, so we know that they didn't have anti-gravity technology. So that's one technology that they didn't have, which obviously modern aliens do. So we can say that from that perspective, did they have energy devices that we, would call 0-point modules, for example? Probably not, because they wouldn't have built certain structures on ley lines if they had energy themselves. Now, did they have solar energy? Hard to say. We've got it now. But basically, everything that they've done that I've read isn't too far away from what we are now. That's only because you've got to remember we've had back engineered stuff. So we had transistors and lasers and various other things that we've back engineered from alien craft and possibly been given from aliens. And obviously we may have learnt stuff from the Anunnaki as well. So there's no way they can be more than 300 years more advanced. Imagine, so if we extrapolate where we was 100 years ago, so what's that, 1926, we had cars, we had telephones, we had photographs. Now we've got rockets, internet, and hopefully a bit more of a better brain to understand the cosmos. So if we take just that 100 years from where we are now, we've got AI and we've got robots and stuff. Move that 300 years of the way that we're exponentially getting more technologically advanced, we will be up with the Anunnaki. We'll know how to. I mean, we've already done it. There was a institution that actually levitated quartz, which is how they levitated the blocks for the Great Pyramid, and all the other structures which have quartz in them. So we know that. So we're learning how they're doing things, and this is right now. Another 300 years, we'd be doing the same thing if we wanted to. Obviously, they don't want to tell us that that's how they did it, but we know how they did it. So I can't see them being, as Billy Carson says, millions of years ahead. Millions. They're time-wise, yes, slightly different to ours, but not in terms of technology. They're not. I don't think at all that they're millions of years ahead. Millions. Imagine us in millions of years. Where would we be? Would we be stuck to this solar system like they are, or were back then anyway when they came here? I don't think so. I think in a million years we'll be, Alpha Centauri for sure. At least Alpha Centauri, if not way more. I mean, Voyager's going out into the deep thing, so that was only sent in what, 60s, 70s, something like that. So yeah, I don't think they're that technologically advanced, even though they've been around longer than us. And again, their technology is slightly different from ours. They build buildings using sound frequencies and stuff like that. So it's basically it was a different route that they took, and they've got crystals probably on their planet that they can use, which we don't have crystals, those type of crystals here on Earth. But we're learning, like with element 115, we're learning. We've synthesized that, even though it's only a minor part, but we'll get there, and in 300 years we'll have element 115 nailed, I'm sure, in a synthetic way that's stable. In which case we can then have, even though supposedly military do trade for small amounts of element 15 off of the tall whites, but I think down the line, 300 years, we'll be creating that ourselves. So yeah, I don't think they're millions of years ahead. I really don't. Edith Daz wrote, hope this goes on Patreon. I will then, if you're enjoying it. Thank you. Edith Daz wrote also, if you were in front on an Anunnaki expert, what would your first question be? If you was in front of an Anunnaki expert, I mean, as far as I'm aware, out of the 5 people that really research the Anunnaki properly as alien people, not just, like the British Museum, who says no, they're not aliens, they're just figments of people's imagination. So technically, I guess I am the foremost expert on the Anunnaki out of the few people that look at it properly. But what would I ask? Probably the question should be, what would I ask an Anunnaki? People have asked me that before. I don't know what to ask, really. I don't know. I can't. I'm stupid. It's more like, how you doing? That's the things that come to my head. I'd like to just chat with them as a how's life? That kind of thing, as opposed to, right, why did you build this? Why did you do that? I don't know. I'm stupid like that. It's weird, isn't it? I guess because I think I've solved a lot of things already. That there's very few things left. I'm trying to think one of the things that I haven't solved. Yeah, there's not many things left. I'd probably asked. I'd love to chat with Marduk and asked him why he went a total different route for Egypt. With the hieroglyphics and the all that kind of stuff, as opposed to everyone else that wasn't really doing anything close to that. I'd be interested to know why he took that route. But yeah, Jeanette, thank you for the question. Jeanette says, how many Anunnaki years has it been since Marduk ruled Earth? I'm assuming less than 2 Nibiru years. So from my research, he took over when Yahweh first was mentioned, which was around 3000 BC. Now, there was some squabble backwards and forwards for a period of time with him and Enlil. Enlil tried to revoke it and then, eventually gave in again. So there was probably 1,000 odd years of, which sounds a lot to us, but not to them, of them squabbling backwards and forwards a little bit. But if we say 3,000 years from BC, then we add another 2,026 years on top. So that's 5,026 years, give or take. And then we look at their time as 3,600 years for 1 year. So 3,600 times 2 is 7,200. So yes, less than 2 years it's been of their time that Marduk took over, which is weird, isn't it, to think like that, less than 2 years, but that's the way it seems to work. Thank you for that. Just as wrote, lazy guest asking questions, hoping it goes on Patreon, then legging it to sleep. No worries, though. I'll stick it on Patreon and YouTube for everyone. And Nicole's wrote, is there anything in the tablets that depict the Last Supper? It's a fair question. Unfortunately, the Sumerian language. So I use Sumerian because obviously that was the Anunnaki language. Obviously, they were around other places. But the Sumerian language ends around 3,000 years ago, starts fading out around 3,000 years ago. So when you look at anything to do with the Anunnaki, the oldest proper reference, or the newest proper reference of sort of someone talking to a god, would have been King Solomon, which is around 1,000 years ago. So really anything from around 2000 BC moving forward is only in the Bible. So there's nothing that I've found that I can say, this was mentioned in the tablets. This was, whatever carving, anything like that at all. So it does seem that around, 2000 BC, the other Anunnaki started to split up, which is actually matches the time frames when Scandinavian Norse gods and the Greek gods and the Roman gods and so on. So I think Greece was around 3000 BC, and then Roman gods turned up around 2000 BC. If I'm not mistaken, don't quote me, but something similar to that. So that all makes sense that, they all buggered off and nobody bothered writing about anything other than some odd people that wrote down stuff, which ended up in, the Bible and the Apocrypha, and, the odd bit in other Bibles, such as the Ethiopian Bible and so on. So really, no one was left to bother writing properly. So that's why we struggle. That's why I certainly struggle with trying to double check anything with it. So it's a fair question. I don't think we'll ever find anything that from the Anunnaki talking about anything to do with Jesus or that period at all, because it really, that's only 2,000 years ago. That's only Marduk who created an elongated skull, in my opinion, from all the research that I've done, person to fight for him or to be king, but he refused. So I don't think we're going to find anything else other than what's in the Bible. We might find the odd scrap of a different, version of it, maybe, which supposedly we still do to this day, different language versions, but language from that period, not from an older period, and just an equivalent, like a copy of, but in a different language. So yeah, it's a good question though. Thank you. I can't remember if I put you anywhere in the class for that. Go number 2 in the class for that. And in 7th wrote, Jesus was a reincarnation of Lucifer's, Krishna, and the rest of which as one whole Enki soul. No, so Jesus was. If you watch my documentaries, you'll see I'm 99% right, which means I'm probably 100% right. Jesus was created by Marduk to become a king. He refused, and so Jesus was left to do his own thing and ended up dying. So he would have had an elongated skull, just like Marduk created Emetep II with an elongated skull, and then their children had elongated skulls and so on. And then Nefertiti would have been probably a almost, dare I say, a clone, because the DNA supposedly from Akhenaten, even though they haven't even found his body, but they seem to think that the DNA from KV-15, the tomb, matches that of Nefertiti, which is weird. They say, but they think that they're brother and sister, and I said no, I don't think they are. I think they're, because in order for them to be brother and sister, then the whole lineage would have had to have been literally bred with each other. But if you read thank you, Nicole, if you look at the Egyptian stories, his father and grandfather did breed outside of it, supposedly. So no, Jesus was definitely created by, I'll stick to my word on that, was created by Marduk. And then Lucifer, when you say was a reincarnation, Lucifer, I can guarantee you with evidence that Lucifer was the son of the morning star, which was Inanna, and there's a name for him. I can't remember his name. Rishi, who was a son of Sargon the Great. He was Lucifer. That was exactly who Lucifer was. Go watch my amazing documentaries. Yes, I'm the only person that's solved all this. Go watch them. You'll see. 100% Lucifer was that person. No doubts at all. Done everything that Lucifer did. Right time frame, right mum, right dad, right position. Destroyed nations. Got took down himself. He was fallen because no one actually classed him as a fallen, not an angel, because angels weren't a thing. But he was fallen because he was denounced, because his own people even killed him with cylinder seals, which are big stone tablets, but in the shape of a cylinder. So yes, so I'm the only person that's worked all that out with evidence. Feel free to watch my other videos that solved many things. Yes, I'm big-headed, but my God, I put the work in. So yes, Lucifer. So Jesus was not a reincarnation of Lucifer. So no, I mean, when you realise that Lucifer thought that he could get a seat at the high table, you realise that he was a demigod, which he was. He was Inanna's son, and he had the ability to use her craft, which is why he could fly in places. Which is why people say, "Oh, he's an angel." No. So yeah, no. Feel free to watch my Nin if you're really interested in learning stuff. There's without this is going to sound rude again. So what you've said there, you've got zero evidence for. Jesus was Lucifer's reincarnation. Da da da. Nothing. My stuff has evidence, so it might be worth switching gears. I'm trying to be polite. It might be worth switching gears from just sort of listening to other people that have zero evidence of stuff and making up stuff, and going to someone that actually does show evidence. So feel free to click my profile when you finish listening to me and go to my website and knock yourself silly with thousands of videos. Edith Stasra, any thoughts on what Saddam had that special forces nicked? Think Saddam was going to expose it. I don't think it was I think people keep getting that whole bloody Stargate movie, where they dig it up from the sands in Egypt. I think people have got that mixed up with the whole going in there, but he did have something. I do believe he had something. So I can't remember now where I heard all this from, but basically he seemed to have said he found something. I think it was AIDS or something that said that he'd found something, or someone had found it and told him, and so he then realised that he had some sort of technology that was, impressive, that could make him look like a god. So he ended up doing all these billboards and notices on buses and everything, saying that he's now the new sort of messiah, the new god. And at that point, that was it. Obviously the American military realised that he's found something, and so they went in hard. So I'm surprised he didn't. He may have said, there was a court case which was televised. I'm surprised, that he didn't say anything, and chances are he probably did, but we only saw the edited version. So I don't know what he would have found. Now, bearing in mind, Iraq was exactly where the Anunnaki were, and they were there since 400, even though they arrived 445,000 years ago. They didn't obviously settle and create the Euphrates and Tigris, which they tell us they did, until the Ajiji turned up, which is, you're talking around possibly another 10,000 years or so after of our time. So yeah, so they were there for a very long time. So I don't know what he found, what was left there by mistake or deliberately or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, he thought he was on a good thing, and unfortunately the Americans realised that he had something. Scrolling down, Deezer Stads wrote, think you just answered my question about what Saddam had. Anunnaki bodies, not to expose but study. He could be. I didn't think of that. That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, if anything, it would probably be a body. That makes sense. Yeah, it could be. I mean, they were buried with stuff, or certainly possibly buried with stuff. Can't be 100% sure because I haven't seen any. But yeah, you could be right. That's a good point. Didn't think of that. Go get a gold star for that. Andy Ever So Handy wrote, evening, outer history and all. Hi, Andy Ever So Andy. Nin 7 wrote, did the Anunnaki also have a war in Mars? No, they didn't. I know there's isotopes supposedly that's on Mars that have looks like that there was a nuclear war, but you can actually, there is natural processes that can create those same isotopes. So the Anunnaki did go on Mars, and there was a dust storm, which, funny enough, I did a video backing up, proving that. So about 6 months ago, the mainstream scientists said, look, there was lakes and rivers on Mars, but they all dried up and were covered over by a sort of a sandstorm. And I said, well, funny enough, that was what the translations that predate that information say. So basically there was a dust storm around 100 90,000 years ago, give or take, on Mars. And prior to that, there was life on Mars, and water, etc. The Anunnaki struggled to breathe. They needed apparatus to breathe on Mars. That's why you've got those tunnels. If you have a look, type in tunnels on Mars, and you'll see these corrugated kind of glass subterranean tunnels. But they weren't subterranean; they were on the surface. So you would walk through them, but tubes. But unfortunately, when the Ajiji came down and stole human women, eventually, when they was due back to Mars, they went back and said, we can't work in them, or everything's covered over, it's gone, it's ruined. So they decided to forget the way station and just go straight to Mars and back when dropping off the gold. So there's no mention of them having any kind of nuclear war on Mars. So I think it is just the natural processes that happens. Edith's dad's wrote, "Staying up, feel guilty as you answer all questions." Oh, no worries. No, I feel guilty that I'm looking at the time now and keeping everyone up. So please, Edith's dad, I'll stick this up on YouTube. Don't worry. Thank you. Nina's wrote, "Molecules also contain consciousness, memory from previous event." We don't know that for sure, because obviously, well, we don't know that for sure. But I hear what you're saying, but we don't actually have evidence of that, because you would need to single out the molecule, and because if you're saying molecules are inside us and therefore we remember stuff from a previous life, then I could say, well, it's the orb as opposed to the molecules. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I don't think so. Andy's wrote, "Do Anunnaki have to worry about us working with other alien races? Do Anunnaki ever oversee?" I don't know the answer to it. It's a good question. I would imagine they deal with the Greys and stuff. Now, whether or not the Greys have said, "Hey, we're going to nick some of your creations and experiment on them," I don't know. I mean, bearing in mind the Anunnaki did exactly the same to us. They created, the Chimera, the Hydra, all of those they did. I mean, even Belarus, the priest of Marduk, wrote about it. So we know that they bloody well tinkered. And so if they're doing that with animals on this planet that they didn't create, why should they be the ones to say no to other aliens wanting to do the same? So I don't know, but I'd like to think that they talk to each other. 9:45, thank you, Goddess Jane. Nicole's wrote, "A fly has protein, silver lining." That was when I was swallowing the fly, and I said brundlefly. Thank you. Yes, okay, that's a silver lining. Okay, I've got there's a fly thing over there that zaps flies, so I'm going to go eat loads of flies afterwards. HP cares about how close will Nibiru get to Earth. It goes between Jupiter and Mars, so basically near the asteroid belt. So it depends on where we are at the time where they are. So 12,000 years ago, both Nibiru and Earth were at the closest perigees to each other. That's what caused the Great Flood, because of the ice shelf breaking off, the gravity distortion on Earth from their large planet. So it depends really on where their planet is and where ours is at that moment in time. It's really difficult to know, because you have to really pinpoint, and if their planet is speeding up, it's really difficult to, 1 year of our time, we could whiz right around the sun. So, just in 6 months, we could be one side and we could be the other side 6 months later. So it's really difficult to know. But yeah, I mean, we're not going to have another great flood, because obviously that ice shelf was already, broken off. We will have asteroids. We will have possibly volcano eruptions, Yellowstone maybe, but not a flood, not in the same way that we did back then. Nina's wrote, "That's what I call consciousness." I think replying to Kerry. Mary has joined and wrote, "Hi chat, hi True, hi Mary, nice of you to join again." And then as wrote, can't be bothered to find it now. That was obviously to Kerry. Scrolling down, people chatting to Nin. Ninna's wrote, make your own live. I wouldn't comment on yours. I'm guessing that's Kerry or someone. Ninna's wrote, only this guy can stop me from commenting. Technically, sorry, it's just my technical point. Technically, Kerry is a mod, so I don't know if she's got the ability to sort of stop someone, mute them, etc. But hopefully she doesn't, because any contribution is a good contribution. Scrolling down, Nin Sevens wrote, who the hell are you to tell me what to do? Make your own lives. I think there's a discussion between Kerry, Jane, and Nin Seven, which is a shame. Kerry's wrote, I'm a moderator, I have superpowers. Oh, please all be nice. Scrolling down. Okay, I've actually come to the end now after all of that. So, thank you very, very much, guys, for joining in. I'm going to shoot now because it's 10 o'clock. My boy's got to go to bed and I've got work tomorrow. But thank you very much. I'll stick this on YouTube. And if you've never listened to me before, go to my website and you can get to everything from there. Like you can go to YouTube, etc. And Saturday, really important, Saturday, a movie comes out that I've made on the ANUNNAKI. It's a 2-hour feature film. It's using AI, but I am a film director and editor and script writer and somewhat special effects expert. But I used AI for this one because I'm never going to be able to make an ANUNNAKI movie with funding from anyone. So it's free of charge for you guys to watch. It comes out on... it costs me money, but it's free for you guys to watch. It comes out on Saturday. You can get to it because... YouTube is going to really block me. I know they will. You can get to it from OTH. That's my initials. OTH 8, because there's going to be 8 movies in total. OTH8.com. Really simple. And then there it will take you to the YouTube video, and you can click notify if you want, or wait till Saturday, and then anytime after that, sit back. It is a proper feature film, so do sit back and watch it properly instead of just thinking, oh, I've got 5 minutes, I'll watch it. It's a narrative film, with start and somewhat an end, not a proper end because it goes on for 8 movies, but it does finish. So enjoy that. Andy's wrote, sorry, there's messages. Darwin's wrote, brilliant live outreach. Thank you. You're more than welcome, Darwin. Bless. Donna's right. I thought there was more evidence that there was a nuclear explosion on Mars. No, as far as I'm aware, it was just the isotopes. I mean, back in the 80s, I heard people saying, "Oh, there was 2 races had, that one race." Well, I heard lots of stories, but one was the race on Mars was attacked by another race, and that's what caused the nuclear explosion. And then as time went on, I heard there's 3 races involved, and just you realise that people just make up stuff. So all we've really got is supposed isotopes. I say supposed because obviously they would have had to have had a rover that was looking for that particular type of isotope to be able to send it back. Now, they don't do that. What they do is they look at the composition from a telescope to see whether or not it's got the isotope. So again, it could totally be wrong because, who's to say that Mars has the same structure, minerals, etc., that Earth has? They're assuming that the same. It's the same as other planets where they look at the brightness of them. And they go, oh well, that's made of this. That's made of this, because they're using Earth as the analog to then decide what another planet's made of. It was a bit stupid. So yeah, I don't see any other evidence that there was any kind of war on Mars that I'm aware of. But thank you. Andy's wrote, night outreach, looking forward to seeing the movie. Oh, thank you, Andy. I hope you really enjoy it. Do share it with people, everybody, once you watched it. share it, because I know TikTok's going to limit, or YouTube will limit me, sorry, on it. So the only way to get it out there is share if you enjoyed it. Nicole's wrote, thank you for the great live Artra Harsus OTH. Stop sucking up to the to me. So Artra Harsus in Sumerian is extremely wise. But thank you, I'll take that compliment. Thank you very much. Cotswolds wrote, thank you. And that's the end. Okay, thank you guys. Appreciate everything. OTH8.com, that's all you need. You can get to my website from there as well, by the way. Our True History. James wrote, night. Good night, everybody. Thank you guys. Have a great evening, and I will catch you again very, very soon. I'll do a live on Sunday night, I think, next Sunday, where you guys have all watched the movie and you're all going, oh my God, you're a genius. If you don't say that, I won't do a live. I'll just run away and cry. But hopefully you'll enjoy it and think and say, wow, this didn't even feel like an AI movie. You've done it so well that it's really good. That's what I'm hoping. So OTH8.com, and you'll just click the notify button, and then you can watch it next Saturday night and let YouTube say, oh crap, loads of people are watching this and sharing this. What can we do to block this guy from giving out real information? It's 90% accurate. There's a couple of bits that I didn't do, like Inky's name as Ia, and then it gets a bit confusing. So there's just a couple of things that I changed just for you guys to, people that don't maybe know everything. But yeah, other than that, it's as accurate as you're going to get. And so there you go. From me to you guys, with love. Thank you to everybody. Take care. See ya. Thank you to the moderators as well. Bye, everybody. Bye.